Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody today? I do apologize. Once again, man, we're going on vacation next week. It's been crazy at work. They're trying to get all out of me they can, I guess. But I'll just give them a couple seconds, see if anybody else want to join the party. Then we'll go ahead and get started. How you doing there, ma'am? Hope everything's going good. I'm trying to get my charger piece out of my bag. There we go. Just in case I get long-winded tonight, y'all know how that goes. All right. I'm gonna clean my camera off. How you doing, Miss Alicia? Hope you're doing good. Cause y'all know I'm excited about tonight. Oh, I was so upset I had a little bit of a late day. I am sharing my testimony tonight. I've been excited about this. My favorite, most wonderful time of the year for me. I get to celebrate this coming up Friday, y'all. I will be celebrating 19 years of serving the Lord. I can't even explain how just wonderful it feels. I just never imagined, you know, and as y'all listen to my testimony tonight, I know some of you have heard my testimony before. Some of you may have not. So some of you might be a treat. Some of you might be like, oh man, not this thing again. But I'm excited about it. So I'm going to give like one more minute and then I'm going to go ahead and jump in because there is no review in anything like that. I'm just telling my story, what the Lord did for me. Let me get this clock on. How you doing, Chris? Glad you making it here tonight, brother. Appreciate you being here. Now, I'm pretty sure, I think Chris has heard my testimony before, but I can't remember. I don't know if you came to a meeting when I shared it before or not, Chris. I don't know. So this might be your first time as well. All right. There we go. All right, got one more thing to grab. Now I'm going to go ahead and get started, y'all. 1 second. Put it in my room. All right. Sorry about that, y'all. I do apologize. Like I said, I literally walked in the door. I'm like, it's already time to get started. Let me get in here and get everything hooked up so I can share this message with y'all tonight. Put this up here just in case. All right, and that's it. So, let me calm down. Let me breathe a little bit. Now, thank y'all for joining me tonight. I do apologize about I try to be punctual, especially with this, because it's so important. Because I know y'all be like, man, I'm not going to sit here and waiting this guy to get here to run his mouth. So I appreciate y'all for staying here with me. Definitely a blessing. Of course, I'm John Stewart on behalf of Lost Sheep Ministry, on behalf of River Lake Baptist Church. And actually, tonight is the origin story of the Lost Sheep Ministry, kind of, so to speak. You think about Marvel and all those things, they always had an origin story. So tonight is my origin story that I'm going to be here to share with y'all. I appreciate y'all being here. Hope y'all bear with me. I've been working on it. The first time I did this, it took me like 2.5 or like 3 hours to go through all of it. But I've been working on it, like trimming it down and getting it, make sure I get the details that them, because it's with me, everything is important, so to y'all, like, I maybe didn't need to hear that, but with me, like, everything is important, you know what I'm saying? So I had to get to a point where I had to realize, like, this is definitely important, and this is important to you, but might not be important to others. So I've been working on slimming it down to try to fit it in with our normal time frame that we're normally here. So we're gonna see how it go. But again, thank y'all for being here tonight. This is a special week for me. Like I said, it was this Friday, made 19 years ago when I gave my life to the Lord, and the Lost Sheep Ministry was started. So again, this is kind of the origin story of the Lost Sheep Ministry. I'm here to share my testimony with you all tonight, and I pray that you'll just listen in and hang with me throughout the whole thing. So again, some of you have heard it before, some of you haven't. So the ones that heard it before, I know some of y'all met out while I was soul winning. So when I'm out soul winning, I always share the whole thing. I just share bits and pieces that maybe relate to whatever it is we're talking to. So if I've shared some of it with you while I was out soul winning, this is the whole shebang, so to speak. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. And I never write this out. So each time I do it, different things come out. Some stuff I might leave out from the last time I did it or whatnot, but I just kind of try to let the Spirit come over me and just give me the words to say and what the Spirit think is important for whoever's watching right now. So that's just how I'm kind of do it. I'm gonna go ahead and pray, and then I'm gonna jump into it. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for watching over me. It was a rough day for me, really busy down to the very last minute. Thank you for these people that still tuned in, even though I was a couple of minutes behind. And they're here, Lord, they're here of your wonderful. I'm just really glorifying you. I'm telling my story, Lord, but it is going to be a testament to your greatness and your goodness and your loving kindness, Lord, your long suffering, and how for the years that I was running away from you, you were still there, protecting me and guiding me in the direction that I need to go into, and eventually to lead me to where I am today, to being a minister of the lost sheep. So I just thank you so much for this wonderful life you've given me. I know normally I'm thanking you for your word, but tonight I'm thanking you for this life you've given me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which I'm going to share all over here tonight, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I thank you for all of it, because I realize, according to Romans 8:28, which I'll bring up later, that all that is everything that happened to me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, made me who I am today, and it made me the person and gave me the ability to do this work that I'm doing. So I'm grateful for it. I didn't like it at the beginning, but I am definitely grateful for it now. And more important, I'm grateful for you giving me the wisdom to see that your hand was working in on me this whole entire time. And I was never alone. You was always there walking with me. You just let me do what I wanted to do, and I paid the consequences for it. But thank you for being so merciful, so kind, and bringing me back in the fold before it's too late. And now helping me to work and working through me to help bring others back in the fold before it's too late for them as well. So I thank you for everything. And I say this prayer in your wonderful Son, Jesus' name, and I ask you to send your Spirit down upon my heart as I bring this testimony, so I can bring out these truths of my life that has helped me have a close relationship with you. And I pray that it touch the hearts of those that's listening to this story, especially if they're going through some of the same things that I went through, that it bring them closer to you so they can have that close relationship with you as well. So we thank you for everything. Say this prayer in your wonderful Son, Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So here we go. So, like I said, thank y'all for joining me tonight, Lost Sheep Ministry. Tonight I'm sharing my testimony, telling y'all what happened to me. I know some of y'all met out soul winning, knocking on doors, and you're probably like, why is this crazy dude out here? Because some of it's been extreme situations, either been in the middle of something that was extremely hard, or in the middle of the winter freezing, but I was still out there knocking on doors telling people about Jesus. And tonight I'm telling you why. You know, it was a reason, it was a point he showed in my life that led me to that, showed me that he was real, showed me that he was working for me and really working through me. And the reason why I go out and do that, the pay homage to what he did for me, so to speak. So when I was thinking about putting it together, I'm just gonna start at the beginning. Start at the beginning. So good, of course, John Stewart. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, back in 1979. So I'm an old dude, man. I'm about to be, in 6 months, I'll be 44. So I'm getting on up there. But I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, born and raised Memphis, Tennessee, North Memphis to be exact, North. Make sure I put that out there. And of course, it's four main characters in my life. They kind of, took my life in the direction that had a major influence in my life. And so I always like to kind of start with them because they're gonna come up throughout the story. And of course, it's many, but four main characters. The first one is my grandmother. I always like to talk about her. She was my rock when I was growing up, and it's weird because I actually didn't like my grandmother like at first because she was the mean grandma. I had my dad's mother was the fun or the nice grandma, and then my mom's mom, which is the one that basically raised me, she was the mean grandma because she was just old school. She was just old school. Kids didn't talk unless spoken to. Whatever she said, that's what you did. She always cooked that old Southern food, beans and things of that nature. So, and she had that rule, whatever she cooked, that's what you ate. And wasn't going up and make a sandwich or eat something else. That's how my grandmother was, whatever you made. So she was just old school. So she was mean, and she just didn't take any crap from anybody, And I had a bad habit. I was always a small little kid, so I had a bad habit. And some I know I do it now. We do it now as adults. Sometimes an adult don't want to be around somebody or don't want to do a certain thing they don't necessarily want to say no. So they'll say something like, oh, well, we got this to do tomorrow, so today. And I was bad about trying to correct, oh no, grandma, we ain't got nothing. And she used to wear these rings on her hands. And I'll be standing behind her without even looking back. She just swing her hand back, pow, right in the mouth every time. And I remember hearing them rings clink across my teeth. But it taught me to be quiet when adults was talking. That was one of the main things, having respect, which we don't have these days, which is why kids are crazy the way they are these days. But that was her. She was just, like I said, she was hard-nosed. She didn't take no crap. She raised me, along with, I had 4 other cousins that one of her daughters ended up passing away at a young age of a heart attack. So she ended up taking those kids in as well. So we had this big house out in North Memphis that all of us, they stayed together. It was like 5 of us. And then we had another cousin that stayed with us. So it was honestly 10, 12 people in this one house. And it was like a 3-4 bedroom. And it was one of those old style houses. So it was huge. The rooms was huge, so the rooms in that house, 2 of those rooms would take up probably the whole house I'm living in now. So the rooms was huge, but there was a lot of people there. But like I said, that was my grandmother. And the reason why I said that she was my rock, because she was the initial spiritual influence in my life. Her thing was, if you stayed in that house, you had to go to church. I know my cousin and them, they used to go out and party on certain nights, things like that. She didn't care what time they got in. She didn't care how they felt. When you came in the house that morning, the Sunday morning, when Sunday morning came up, you was getting up, you was getting ready to go to church. So she kind of made us go to church. So, because it wasn't an option. And when you're a kid, you don't like it then, but man, I really appreciate it now. That's when I pray, I thank God all the time for her, for what she did, kind of forcing him in my life, but at least laying that foundation, She laid that foundation down that I was able to build upon later on, because it did come back to fruition, and I end up using that foundation that she laid a lot. That's actually the reason why I am the way I am and do what I do right now, because of that foundation that she laid. So that's a little bit about her. She'll come up a couple of times as the story go on as well. So that was my grandmother, and then we have my mom, which I love her to death. But my mom, she had me when she was very young. My mama had me. She got pregnant when she was 14, and she had me when she was 15. Of course, my dad was 15 as well. So she just had me at a very young age. She was a very hard worker when she was younger, very hard worker. My grandmother was a hard worker as well. From the stories I heard about her, my grandma used to work 70, 80 hours a week, because my grandmother, I forgot to mention, my grandma altogether had 19 kids, and my mom was the last one. So when y'all wonder why I got a big family, which is, it's nowhere close to 19. I know people that got bigger families than me, but in these days of society, you don't have big, seven kids. You might have one or two, maybe three, and three is huge. But I got seven altogether, and plus the other ones other strays that I took in. But it's because my grandmother had a lot of kids, and my grandma, like I said, my mom was the very last one, and she was a twin. So so my mom was the baby of the family, so she was kind of rebellious. She started off good, she worked good. And then as I got older, she ended up getting into drugs real bad, which will come up a little later. But that was her. She had a loving heart, and she really took care of me in my early years. And my early years was actually pretty good. And then just later, as the drugs started to take effect, she kind of went her own way kind of thing. So another major character, the reason why I am, is my dad, of course. And it wasn't that he was just in my life. He was such a big influence. It's the fact that he wasn't in my life that had more of an influence on me than anything. And it's crazy because for the longest, I used to be so upset at him for not being in my life. I used to be so mad. I'm like, man, if he was in my life, maybe my life would have been so much better. I would have, knew this and knew that, and went through this, went through that. But now that I'm older and I know him and I know the type of person he is, it was actually a blessing that he wasn't in my life. I know they always talk about, single parent homes and things of that nature. It actually was a blessing that he wasn't in my life. Because since he wasn't in my life, it kind of forced me to grow up quicker, but it also gave room for other good men to come into my life. Because had my dad been around and all that, the men would have been wouldn't have been as reluctant to help me out. But because he wasn't present in my life, and I was always struggling and going through the things I was going through, it actually gave the opportunity for better men than he was to come into my life and have an influence on me, which some of those men that come up as the story goes on as well. And then another one, main character, like there's a lot of people that come up, but another main character is my brother. I have a brother that's 5 years younger than me, and he really, I was kind of like his dad to the point that when I was in college, I ended up adopting him and bringing him up to live in Nashville with me while I was in college. So again, that's gonna come up in the story later on. So I just bring up them four. Those just the main ones that really had a major impact on my life and the direction that he went. So I always like to kind of put them out there because they're gonna come up as the story goes on. So again, my mama had me when she was 14, very young, but she was very resilient. So even though she had me, most teenagers, especially back then, once they had a baby when they were young, because my grandmother, the thing with my grandmother, she's like, I'm not taking care of that baby, because she was still, at the time, she was still working and taking care of her house and buying a house and everything, so we had somewhere to stay. So she's like, I'm not taking care of it. Like, you won't, what I'm saying, you had it, you're going to have to take care of it, so you're going to have to work. So my mama was determined to not lose, not miss graduation because she had this kid. So again, it showed you how strong she was. So she had me when she was 15. She took a little bit of time out of school, and then she ended up going back to school, and she went to the school called Tech. It was a technical school in Memphis, so it wasn't the actual, public school like everybody else, the regular school. She went to a technical school, but she went to that school and she worked. And the way she was able to go to school, because my grandmother, she was working, her mom was working, so she couldn't take care of me. And then my dad's grandmother, she said she wouldn't watch me unless my mama paid her. And of course, my mama was making just enough to take care of herself and me, so she had the money to pay her. So what happened was she ended up talking. She was telling me this story, and to this day I don't know this guy, but she was telling me a story. She said what happened was she was talking to one of her teachers, and she was saying she was possibly going to have to drop out because she had me and whatnot. And the guy was like, well, you're such a smart young lady. I hate to say, and very talented. I hate to see you do that. She said, so I tell you what, if you bring them up here, you bring them, I'll just keep them in my class and watch them. And this is how cool it was. And of course, this was back in the day. They probably couldn't do nothing like that now. But one of her teachers actually will watch me while she took classes that, during the day. So from the age of like, I guess 6-7 months, I've been going to school. So it explains why I kind of love school. I always loved school. And I guess because I was raised in the school. So that's what the guy would do while she was in school. One of her professors would watch me. And she said, most babies, they cry and stuff. She said I was a very cry baby. And even when he was teaching and stuff, like I wouldn't make a fuss. She's like, honestly, it's like I was in class listening along to whatever he was teaching. It'd be funny if he was a chemistry teacher, because I did end up being a chemist. But I like I said, I don't know the guy, and it's been so long, and she don't even know if he's still alive or not. But that's what she did. It just showed her resilience at that time. You know what I'm saying? So she was working, still going to school, did everything she can to take care of me. So with that being said, the first 4 or 5 years was really good, to be honest. You know, that was really good. I remember, you know, don't have a lot of memories because they was young, but they was good. You know what I'm saying? Everything was going good. She was doing all she can. But around 4 or 5 years, that's when things started changing. When I got about 4 or 5, and it got to a point where, you know, she had graduated, so she still was working to take care of me, and she needed somebody to watch me. So then she started. I guess she was paying my grandmother on my dad's side to watch me, and that's what happened. What happened was I had a cousin that was on my dad's side that actually started molesting me when I was a child. And this is some, man, the first time I ever talked about this like publicly was when I did my first sermon when I first moved up to Waverly back in 2015. In 2014. First time I ever talked about that publicly. So, you know, so that was a big deal for me, you know, but it would, and then I had to bring it out because it's such an important part of who I am. It's the reason why I work the way I work, and the reason why I make sure that my wife never has to work to take care of my kids. So, because that's what happened. My mom, at the time she was working so much that she like whoever would watch me, you know what I'm saying, that's who she'd leave me with. And my grandma started watching me, and that was like I said, a male cousin of mine, and I was being molested. So that started when I was right around 5 years old. And you know, when I always like to say, you know, when I say molested, you know, a lot of people think, oh, they touched you, or, you know, touched you in the workplace or something like that. But I was actually being raped, you know, full blown sexual activity with this man from the time I was about 4, probably up until I was like, I know it happened between the age of about 4 and 5 to somewhere around 9 and 10. So for about 5 years, I was being raped by this man, and then later on it ended up being another man on my mom's side of the family. But that's when my life started to really kind of decline a little bit. About that same time, my mom started getting into the drugs. She started getting into drugs, and, you know, it started off as drinking and smoking weed because we had some cousins that lived with us, and they all, you know what I'm saying, did that kind of thing. So she ended up getting in that as well. And then eventually she started snorting coke. And then by the time I was about eight, she started snorting coke. By the time I was 8, she started snorting coke, and that's when I started really noticing the changes. She used to always be a hard worker. She was bouncing from job to job. She used to always pay her bills, but we was bouncing from place to place all the time. Like seemed like we couldn't stay in one place for a long amount of time, and that went on for a couple of years. So about 10, when I was about 10. She, you know, ended up getting on, started, well, I guess about 9, she started on crack. And by the time I was 10, she was full blown, what you would call a crackhead kind of thing. So, like I said, around like 5, when my life started kind of going that different direction. But even with that going on, because I was so young and naive to what was going on, especially with the molestation thing, I was so young and naive, it still wasn't like a bad life to me. I was still always a joyous kid. I've always been like that, you know, but because of my mom's drug habit, and because of, her bouncing around from apartment to apartment, a lot of times we would get an apartment, stay there for a month or so, and then we end up back at my grandmother's house. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, live over in North Memphis. So that's why I ended up spending a majority of my childhood living with my grandmother back and forth in North Memphis. So in my grandmother's house, you know, North Memphis, like I said, I had my other 4 cousins that was living there. Then we had another cousin that lived there with us too, and he was kind of like the neighborhood, you know, drug dealer kind of thing. So, you know, so by the time I got 8, 9, 10 years old, everybody that was around me, everybody that had influenced my life, they was in some I guess what we call some form of sin. But everybody in my house, they were either sold drugs, like my older cousins that my grandmother had custody of as well. He ended up being in the gang. So, you know what I'm saying? So I was surrounded by like gang members, you know, drug dealers, murderers, you know, rapists and thieves. And I mean, that's just what I was raised by. And I always tell people, I always felt like I was a sheep among wolves kind of thing. So after a while, that's what my life was. That's what I was raised by. I lived there. And again, it was so weird because it was still, I look back on it now like, man, that was pretty rough, but it was so indifferent. I didn't realize it at the time because God always had his hand on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I didn't know, I wasn't like, oh yeah, God got me kind of thing. It's just, it was always something there. Even though everything seemed like in my world was crumbling down, there was always something there because I was always in a good mood kind of thing. So like I said, I was in the house. Everybody in the house was either on drugs. So other than my grandmother, of course, by this time she was older, but everybody in my house, they either sold drugs, they was on drugs, By this time, my mom, by the time I was 10, like I said, my mom was full blown crackhead. And at this point, to support her habit, she started end up becoming a prostitute. So she got into prostitution. And the thing is, everybody knew my family because we had like one of the biggest houses on the block, and everybody knew my family, because because they knew my mom and they knew my uncle who kind of ran the block kind of thing. So everybody knew my mom was a prostitute, So you a kid, man, that's rough. Because how kids is, especially down in Memphis, folks will get on you. And I used to, I used to be real, I'm still fat, but I used to be really fat. So, you got to, when you ugly or you fat in Memphis, you got to be able to check, you know what I'm saying? So that we call checking or snapping, whatever you call it, playing the dozen. And so I was really good at it. What up, Peanut, man? Appreciate you being here, bro. I'm just getting started, so you're good. I'm just sharing my testimony tonight. So again, you come to Memphis, you got to check. So I used to be real good at checking because, like I said, I was big and I was dark and I was, ugly. So people stayed on me. So I had to get good at it. But the one trump card they always had was they would always bring up my mama being a prostitute. You know what I'm saying? So I'd be getting on somebody, I have them in the corner, and then they'll say something like, "Oh, that's why I had your mama last night, and it only cost me $2 or something like that." And that was always devastating because the thing is, man, I love my mom. Like up until the drugs really took her away, she was that strong black woman that she handled her business and made sure I was safe and taken care of. And you know what I'm saying? But then them drugs got in there, man. She was turned into really a completely different person. I really understand seeing her and what the drugs did to her. I really understand now what the Bible called being a slave to sin, because what she was doing is really, I knew she loved me. But this thing had such a hold on her. No matter how much she loved me, she still had to do what she had to do to take care of that. So again, that's when the lifestyle kind of going out of control kind of thing. She lost a job, ended up staying with my grandmother, like I said, over in the middle of North Memphis. And at the time, North Memphis, we stayed about a block away from what's called Hurst Village Projects, which is like one of the worst projects in Memphis. So, you know what I'm saying? So we basically stayed in the projects. And matter of fact, I spent most of my time there because that's where all my friends and cousins and everybody lived there. So again, one of the worst parts of Memphis. And then, like I said, my grandmother, she had 6 people she was trying to take care of. None of us was really working at the time. So she was trying to support us. And at that time, she had stopped working. So all she was getting in was like Social Security checks and like the welfare checks and things and food stamps for us. So, man, the house we had when I remember we were young, it was a nice house. But the house just started falling apart, and it was a bad situation. There was roaches everywhere. If y'all never lived in the hood, man, you never lived around the roaches. Thank God, because it was roaches everywhere. They would be crawling on you while you sleep. To this day, it's 2 things that I still do from my child, and it was from living in the house that I lived in my childhood. Like when I sleep, like man, you see people in couples in movies, they all under the same blanket and stuff like that. Like me and my wife don't sleep under the same blanket because when I sleep, I wrapped myself up in my blanket completely, you know what I'm saying? That was because if you didn't do that when I was in North Memphis, roaches would get, they'd be crawling on you while you're sleeping at night. You know what I'm saying? Roaches or bed bugs or whatever would be crawling on you. So that's what I used to do. So to this day, that's how I sleep. When I sleep, I almost take my blanket and wrap myself up like a sleeping bag, but I make sure it's airtight so nothing can get in to this day. And another thing I do, if you ever see me putting on my shoes, get ready to put on my shoes, I always hit the bottom and shake them out to make sure there's bugs in there. Because sometimes, when you go back while you're sleeping at night, the roaches will crawl in your shoes. And if you didn't know it, you just get up in the morning, throw your shoes on, you'll be in school and roaches just start just crawling out of your shoes while you're at school. And that's embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? So that was some of the things the childhood trauma thing. And to this day, I still do it. I wrap up in my blankets. I don't sleep under my blanket with my wife. We've tried it and I just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? So I wrap up in my blanket and I always hit my shoes to make sure there's no roaches in them or any kind of bugs in them, which has actually saved me a couple of times. There's a couple of times now I live in the country. Instead of roaches, we have spiders. And there's a couple of times I've hit my shoes before I put them on and some brown recluses fell out of them. So it's a good habit to do that. So again, that was just it. So again, my grandmother, she had just government assistance supporting us. So times was rough. You know what I'm saying? My uncles and them, they sold drugs, but it was just really to buy more drugs. You know what I'm saying? Nobody was really helping my grandmother provide for us, and the house started falling apart. There was parts that over the years, there was parts of the house, the roof was caving in. There was rooms in the house that we couldn't even go into if it was raining because the roof had caved in so much that the room would literally like fill up with water, like almost like it was outside as I'm in the hole. So it was certain rooms that we couldn't go in if it was raining hard enough because it was so bad. Holes in the walls, you know what I'm saying? And the house we stayed in, it was kind of elevated, you know, like you had to, you know, walk up on the step. It was elevated so you can go in the house. And there was certain areas in the house that you couldn't step because the floor was so weak that if you stepped, you would literally fall through the floor and fall under the house. So of course we had all kind of rats and, you know, rodents in the house. Sometimes we would open up drawers and there'd be possums in the drawers, living in the drawers. Like, I mean, it was insane. You know, and I remember at night, whenever, like, you get up, you know, sometimes you get up in the night and you had to go get you some water. Well, what we would have to do, if you got up in the middle of the night to go get you some water, you had to cut the light on first in the kitchen and then stand there. You know, and the reason why you're standing there, because you had to wait for all the roaches to clear out before you can get in the kitchen. I mean, it literally would look like the furniture get up and start moving. You know what I'm saying? Because there was so many roaches. I mean, they would completely cover everything. So that's kind of what I grew up in. And again, you know, it was so normal that I didn't realize how bad of a situation that really was. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, it was just normal, everyday thing to me. You know, now I live the way I live now. Like, man, it was pretty messed up kind of thing, you know. But again, even with all that, there was still a presence in my life. I didn't know it was God at the time, and I didn't find out till later on. But, you know what I'm saying, it was pretty rough. So that was the childhood. Like I said, so at this time, I'm dealing with, you know, living in the projects. And, I mean, living in the house close to the project. And the thing is, my mom, like I said, my mom lost a job. So we did get food stamps and we got, you know, government assistance. Well, I forgot what they call it now. It was food stamp and the other one where you actually get welfare. So we got that. But the problem was my mom was spending it on drugs. You know what I'm saying? So 9 times out of 10, when the first of the month came around, before it even came around, the money was already gone. Because she usually owed it to some drug dealer already, or she was going to get some. So, you know what I'm saying? Well, let's say we got $300-$400 food stamp. She might buy like $20-$30 worth of food, a couple of boxes of cereal, a couple of loaves of bread, some bologna, something like that. And then the rest of that money was gone. We didn't see none of it. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't get clothes often. I got one pair of shoes at the beginning of the school year, and that was it. Matter of fact, that's another thing from my childhood. If you see me, you'll notice I mostly only wear black shoes. I think I may have had maybe 2 or 3. Matter of fact, I got a pair of boots right now that's like red leather, but they're my work boots. And my wife was like, "What?" You know, and it's only because that's the only, you know, only color they had. But the reason why I wore black shoes because I only got one pair of shoes per year at school year, and I was very athletic. I was a rough boy, so I would be rough on shoes. So, you know, if you got white shoes or something like that, once they get old, you can tell they're old. But with black shoes, as long as you keep on cleaning them up, you can have them forever. So that's why I only wear black shoes. Most time you see me, 99% of the time you see me, I will have on black shoes. Like I said, I just got a first pair of color shoes, different color shoes a few weeks ago because I went to get me some work boots and they didn't have black ones. The only one they had was these red leather ones, and I had to get some new boots. You know, so that's another thing from childhood. So I only got like one pair of shoes, didn't get a lot of clothes, and the clothes I did have was hand-me-downs. So I was a pretty big kid, and I was really, even in junior high, I was almost the size of like my uncles and cousins. So most of the clothes I had came from them. Like even down to the underwear. I remember one time, Peanut might laugh at this. I remember one time in football practice when I was in high school, I had my uncle had gave me some underwear. My uncle, he used to be like a little player, so he wore like bikini underwear and stuff. So I remember I had some underwear, and it was like some leopard skin bikini underwear. So whenever I got dressed in the football practice, I would try to go around the lockers to hide, you know, so somebody couldn't see me when I was putting my plans on. And one of the days the guy came around and saw me, man, and I never heard the end of that, man. That's still to this day they'll bring it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you, a stripper? And man, they was clowning me that whole day. Like, actually, that me to this day they'll bring it up. But you know, that's all I had. You know what I'm saying? So I had to even wear my uncle's underwear. You know what I'm saying? That's how bad off we had. So, you know, I had a pretty bad kind of thing. Didn't have money at all. So because of that, though, like I said, it made me into a little hustler. So what I did when I was about 11, 12, I started kind of realizing that if I'm going to make it through this world, I got to depend on myself. You know what I'm saying? And my brother, she had my brother. We were 5 years apart. So, you know, I was 5. I was 5 when she had him. So by this time he like 3 or 4, you know what I'm saying, around when she started getting really bad, he was about 5. So I knew really it was going to be up to me to take care of me and my brother. So I just started I was like a little hustler. So my grandmother, she had like this network of old ladies, that's what I like to call them, that lived in our neighborhood. And they, the neighborhood was so bad because, like I said, we literally lived across the street from the biggest drug house on the block. Matter of fact, we can see, most of the business, they did it in and out the back door, and we sit on our porch, we just watching the fiends go in and out all day. You know what I'm saying? The dope boys is on the corners. Like, if you went to the store, you had to go past the dope boys or the gang members and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I got to keep it real, Peanut. I got to keep it real, bro. 100% let y'all know how far I've came. You know what I'm saying? But it was a bad neighborhood. So that being said, my grandma had a lot of old ladies that was always afraid to go to the stores because of the hoodlums standing on the corner, basically. But everybody knew me. That was the one thing. Everybody knew me. I was a smart kid, so everybody had a respect for me. I don't want to say a respect like, oh, they were scared. That's John. They were scared. They like had a respect because they knew my situation. They knew my mom. They knew my family and how bad my family was. But yet I was like one of the top students in the school. You know what I'm saying? And another thing that people loved about me too was I never tried to be something I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, all my friends was gangster. My people was gangster. I never tried to be the gangster. You know what I'm saying? My folks, they sold drugs or was on drugs. I never tried to be that. I've always been myself. So everybody loved me in the neighborhood. They had a respect for me because I always just did what I do. So anyway, so I had a freedom. I can walk around the neighborhood and nobody would mess with me, basically. So what my grandma would do, if her friends needed somebody to go to the store for them or something like that, she would just let me know, and I would go down, get their money, they would give me their list. I would go grocery shop for them or whatever. And whenever I came back, they either gave me the change that were left over, or sometimes they would feed me, or sometimes like if they had food stamp, they like, well, just buy what you want. You know what I'm saying? No, get my stuff first and then buy what you want. So, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't no set price, but that's how I made money. Then also these ladies that had yards, so I would cut the yards, take out their trash, anything. I was just like the little errand boy around the neighborhood. And that's how I made money from the time I was about 10 years old up till I got my first job when I was like 15. So that was my little hustle. I just had all these old ladies, and I just know when they needed something, they call me, and I go. I go get what they need kind of thing. So that was my hustle. I said it was some good there, and I had that freedom. And it's so weird, a lot of people ask me, and I end up becoming a drug dealer later, and I get to that. But when I was in the hood, where you would think that was what I would get into that, I never did. I really never messed with drugs, honestly, until I got to college. A couple of times when I was younger, hanging out with my friends, but no, really serious when I got to college. And it was because of the drug dealers. You know what I'm saying? Like, they would tell me, like, man, look, you're smarter than this. We don't ever want to see you out here on this block. I had these guys, they would tell me, like, man, we'll never want to see you on this block. Or if we ever see you on this block, you got a problem. Like, you smarter than this, and they would tell me, like, yeah, I know it look good, but it's not as good as it look. He said, you got the potential to do more things, and we're going to make sure. And they would take care of me. Like, when I was on my way to the gym, I spent most of my time at Greenlawn Community Center. So when I was on my way to the gym, they would watch out for me, make sure I got down there safe, make sure nobody wasn't picking with me, nothing like that. Like, the hood really took care of me. Like, honestly, I always like to say, when you see me, you see the best of North Memphis Greenlawn at that time, because they really took care of me, and they kind of nourished me and kept me safe and kept me on this path kind of thing. So like I said, it wasn't all bad, but when I look at my home, like, it was bad. And that's really why I love school so much, because school was my escape from home. Like, when I was at school, I didn't have to worry about my mama bringing guys into the house. There was times when I was younger that I actually remember her having sex in the bed while I was in the bed. She thought I was asleep or whatever. But I remember, you get in there in bed shaking and stuff, you're going to wake up. But, you know what I'm saying? But I always like pretend like I was asleep. But I have vivid memories of her having sex while I was in the bed with her kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So that was the childhood. And because of that, it made me into a hustler. But it also started kind of hardening my heart toward God a little bit. But again, staying in grandma's house, that was it. You went to church, so I went to church. I obeyed grandma and went to church. So that was most of it. But the thing I did that kept me from really falling into deep despair, so to speak, I stayed busy. And to this day, another day, I stay busy to this day. Most of y'all know, if you deal with me, I'm always somewhere doing something. I've always stayed busy, and that's what I did. So I spent a lot of time at Greenlawn Community Center. They had all kind of free classes they were offered, so I would take cooking classes. I played basketball there, flag football, pool tournaments, whatever that I can do that's not be at my house That's what I did. You know what I'm saying? And then I also joined the Boy Scouts, which ended up having a way more of an impact in my life. When I was about 9 to 10 years old, I joined the Boy Scout, and I met some men, some great, real men there that really kind of guided me down along my path as well. So that's what I did. So that's kind of my childhood. That's what I was raised up in. That's what I was raised around. Like I said, I was just everybody in my house. They was either hustlers, drug dealers, gang members, pimps, prostitutes, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, my dad never was around because he was a hustler. You know what I'm saying? My dad, even though the corner he hung out on was two blocks away from my house, and he never would come visit. You know what I'm saying? Never brought me money or anything. And the only time I got to see him was if I was on my way to school, because my route to school, sometimes I would go by where his corner was at, and he'd be standing on the corner with a $40 in his hand. Every time I see him, I remember him just standing on the corner, either with a $40 in his hand or a blunt in his hand. That's what he did kind of thing. And, you know, but I didn't really mess with him because he wasn't a good dude. You know, so I appreciate, you know, the Bible say honor your parents and parents, your father and your mother, and I honor them. I appreciate what they're doing. I know if it weren't for them, no matter what they did, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here. But he just was not a good dude. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't have a close relationship at all. And if I knew he was on the corner, I tried to avoid him because he knew that I was hustling. And if he knew I was hustling, if I came across, he would ask me like, hey, you got any money on you? You know what I'm saying? If I say no, he'll check my pockets. And if I had money, he would take my money. You know what I'm saying? So I tried to avoid him, or if I did, see him, I would give my money to one of my friends because he wasn't going to check them, he'll just check me. So it was almost like when Debo came around, you got to start putting your stuff up kind of thing, because that's just kind of the dude he was. You know what I'm saying? And another thing, he did this when I was older, not to get sidetracked, but just kind of let you know what kind of guy he was. When I was older, when I got to high school, I wanted a car. You know what I'm saying? Because I was catching the bus to get to work, and I was working like an hour away out in Germantown area, which is way about an hour on the bus. That's about an hour drive from where I stayed at. So I had worked my butt off to save up like $600-700. I was going to go to an auction and buy me a car. And he ended up finding out about it. And he told me like, hey, I got a friend trying to sell a car. I'm like, really? Like, yeah. So the dude brought the car by, beautiful car. It was a beautiful Buick Skyline. I'll never forget. It was 92. So this is 96, 97. Let me see, it was my senior year. So it was 96, 97. And this guy had this Buick Skyline, 92 Buick Skyline. And he's like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, how much you want for it? He's like, how much you got? And I'm like, man, I got like $700. He said, that'll be enough. So gave me the keys and everything. But then he told me like, don't drive it. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, just don't drive it. It's something messed up with the title. We're going to get the title to you. Just don't drive it to the end. So, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, cool. So I parked it we had a pretty big backyard. So I parked it in my backyard. You know what I'm saying? And of course, for a little while it was fine. But like about a week or so, I'm like, man, I'm finna drive this bad boy. So me and I had my buddy, my best friend, and my cousin named Chad, we riding around this car all over Memphis, just kicking it. You know what I'm saying? And after like 4 or 5 weeks, I started getting suspicious because every time I brought up the title, my daddy, he never would go to put in the paperwork or whatever. So finally, I started searching through the glove box, and I found a piece of paper, like a single piece of paper with a lady's name on it. So so what I did was I went into the phone book and looked this lady up. Because back in the day they had the phone book, they ain't had the internet where you Google people. And I looked the lady up and talked to her, and turned out it was this older lady. And I told her like, hey, do you own a Buick Skylark? Blah blah blah. She said, well, I did. She said, but my son is on that stuff, and he stole it. He stole it, and I don't know where it's at. And I said, ma'am, I believe your son. Now I explained the guy because it was a tall white guy. I'll never forget it. He was a tall white guy. He had like a long beard. And she's like, yeah, that's my son. I said, ma'am, I think I have your car. I think your son sold it to me. And she's like, wow. And I said, well, you know what? It's not right for me to be driving. I said, I'll bring it back to you. But of course, my grandma said, don't you take that car back. She said, he called the police, had them come to it. And, you know what I'm saying? Because if you take the car back, she can have the police waiting on you. And if they catch you with the car, you going to jail. So which I didn't know that I was young. And of course, I listened to my grandmother, and that's what I did. And I never forget when the police came and I told him the situation. He said, man, your dad did that to you? And I'm like, yes, sir. He said, you not upset? I said, man, what can I do as my dad? He said, I can't lie to you, man. He said, the way the youth has been these days, I've really been getting down. He said, but you have restored my hope in our youth. He said, I really hope you make something out of yourself. I'll never forget that because a white officer and told me that, we didn't mess the police. But he said, man, he said, you've restored my faith in our youth. He said, I really hope you make something out of yourself. But So he took the car, but I was out of $700. Like, well, can I get my? He's like, no, we can't do nothing. So, and then after that, my dad kind of avoided me for like a couple of years. I ain't seen him for a couple of years after that. But it just showed you the kind of person he was, and that's why I said, like I said in the beginning, I'm thankful that he wasn't around. Because if he wasn't around, he would influence me to be like he was, what I'm saying, kind of thing. So that's really the background. I always like to kind of, last time I did my testimony, my cousin always like, man, you didn't give enough of your child, your background. They need to know what you really went through. And again, what I'm saying, even though, and I look at my life, what I went through, and it was bad, but still, I know there's people out there that had it way worse than me. So I don't try to dwell on that, and I try to dwell more on the fact of what God did to bring me out of that set. So that was kind of my childhood, like I said, up until, that's based my life from the time about 8, 9 years old when my mom really started going on crack, getting back on crack, up until I got my first job when I was about 16. That when stuff started changing for me. And another thing that happened that's significant that I got to remember, my grandmother, when I was about 10, 11 years old, my grandmother started going blind because she had diabetes. So she started going blind. So I actually used to have to cook all the Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving dinners, like, so I'm talking about the turkey, the ham, the dressing, the sweet potato pies, cakes, and all that. I used to have to cook that. My grandmother, because I was, like I said, I was a fat kid. So whenever my grandma was cooking, I would hang in the kitchen because I knew when she made them cakes, you're going to have a cake bowl, and she would let us lick the cake bowl. So I hung in there to make sure, because my cousins, they was always off doing stupid stuff. So I always hung in the kitchen to make sure I got the first to the cake bowl. And, and after a while, I think she kind of knew she was going blind. And she's like, well, look, you're going to hang in the kitchen, going to help. So whenever she was in the kitchen cooking, I would hang in the kitchen with her and I would help her. And she taught me how to cook. And it just worked out. So like I said, after a couple of years after we started that, she started going blind. So I ended up being the one having to cook the dinners and stuff, cook dinner and everything. And so, by the time high school came around, I would actually, and she was, her diabetes started getting worse and worse and worse to where she had to take shots and check her blood and stuff. So I used to have to do that. I used to have to check I used to have to get up in the morning before the bus because I went to Westside High School, which was on the way, it was still in North Memphis, but it was like on the other side of North Memphis, out of what we call Fraser. You know what I'm saying? So that was about a 30 to 40 minute ride from where we was on the bus. So I would have to get up early enough to make her breakfast, make her lunch, and I would sit it in the fridge so she could know where it was at, so she can just kind of grab it as she went about the day. And I would have to give her insulin shots. I would have to fill up all her insulin shots, needles, and lay them out for her, and check her blood sugar before I left in the morning. So I had as a kid, man, that was a lot, going on, and that's why I wanted the car. Because like I said, I got in high school, I got my first job washing dishes at this place called Folks Folly. You know what I'm saying? And it was crazy. I felt like I was in hot cotton because most of the jobs at the time, minimum wage was like $4.25. And when I got my job at Folks Folly, we were making $5. So that's a whole 75 cents. So we felt like we was balling, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, the job was it was about an hour away from when I stayed, catching the bus. And then, not only that, and when I was in high school, so I stayed busy. So I played football. When football season was over, I wrestled. And when wrestling season was over, I actually ran track. And I even played basketball down at the community center as well. So I was always doing something. So my mornings was basically started about 5 o'clock. And with work, and then I started working as well. So from 5 to maybe 12:30. That was my schedule. So I would get up at 5, cook my grandma breakfast, give her shots and do all that stuff. And then, go off to school. Then, of course, was in school all day. Then school was over, football practice started. And then for like a month, football season, we actually made the playoffs my last year in high school. So for about a month, football season and wrestling season was going at the same time. So I would have to go both of those. Then when I get through with those, then I went to work. And then, then I got home from work 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Took a shower and went to sleep and got up and did it the next day. You know what I'm saying? So it was brutal. But like I said, I knew that's what I had to do if I wanted to get, out of the situation I was in. And by this time as well, by the time I reached high school, my mama had got so bad that because me and my brother, we had the same mom but different dad. So my brother his dad ended up taking custody of him when I was in high school. So we actually kind of separated. I would see him from time to time. I would take him money and clothes and stuff like that from time to time because his dad went by and I liked for him to be fresh. So I would take him like Nikes and little stuff like that. But we you know what I'm saying, we had separated. So that's what I'm doing. That was, like I said, so that was my high school, you know what I'm saying. I had my job. I was working my butt off. playing football, playing basketball, running track. And I was doing so much. I knew like something has to give. Not only that, like I was really good at school as well. I was like in the top 5 of the class of school. So I didn't know which one of these things was going to get me out of the hood, but I'm like, something's going to get me out of this hood. And it's crazy because, you know, I go back to the hood now, and you see it all the time. You see it in movies and stuff, like people love, oh, from the hood, I never leave here and all that. But I just knew, even at a young age, like there was nothing for me there. I knew that as long as I stayed there, I would never grow. And like I said, I can't tell you what it was. I know what it was now. I know it was the Spirit of God on me, but I just knew I needed to leave. There was no way I was going to be able to be successful. Honestly, I didn't know if I was going to live. I knew if I stayed in Memphis, I was going to eventually get caught up in something, either end up in jail or dead because of the way my mama was living her life and the things she was doing. You know what I'm saying? And I'll tell you this one more story from childhood because I want to jump into it when God came in. But I remember this one time, matter of fact, it was my first year of college. I came home for my summer break, my first year of college, and this happened about a week before I was getting ready to go back off to college, man. So something happened. I was at the house, and this guy ended up getting killed. And the crazy part was the night before he got, when it all happened, basically somebody set him up, and he ended up getting robbed, and the people ended up shooting him. And it was over there by my house, because the house, by the time I was in high school, the block that I lived on, like all the other houses, they had basically fell apart and was torn down. And our house was falling apart, but we were still living there, so they couldn't tear it down. I mean, if you walked by my house was being held up by like 2x4s. Like the roof was being held up by 2x4s, and just God's grace, to be quite honest, you know what I'm saying? But it was the only house on the block, whatnot. So what happened was this dude got shot, and he ended up coming and like knocking on our doors to try to get help or whatever. And my grandmother, by the time, she was blind, and I was living at the back of the house. So by the time she got back there to tell me that, hey, come see who's at this door, we got there, and the guy actually like kicked in our door. He went into my mama, she was living there at the time, went into my mother's room, rambled around for a little while, and then left out, you know. So next thing you know, so we didn't think nothing of it. We locked the door, put like so 2x4 over the door, went back to bed. Next morning, I get a knock on my door. It was police officers. And they're like, well, no, did you witness anything last night? Did you see? I'm like, no. Like, what's going on? I'm like, what's going on? Like, well, no, a guy died. And I went and looked at my door where the guy was beating on the door and stuff. It was blood all over the door. So it was a pretty scary situation. So I didn't think nothing of it. I got up, I had to work that day, got up and went to work or whatever. And then I remember that day I was supposed to cook the employee meal that I worked at Folks Follow. Once a week we would have an employee meal. And I was supposed to cook the meal that day. And I'll never forget, so I was trying to get to work early, and I went to stop by this time my cousin had moved down the road, and I told her, hey, I got to go to work early. Could you keep an eye on my grandmother? You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing. And while I was down there, I was getting ready to leave his house, and they said, hey, your mama, she's looking for you. She needs you to come get her. I'm like, man, I ain't got time for this. They're like, no, she's like, you really need to come get her. So I went, it was a bakery that my cousin worked there, and I went over there to the bakery, and she just came out and jumped in the car. And I'm like, what's going on? She said, somebody trying to kill me. And like her leg was bleeding and everything. I'm like, what? And she's like, somebody trying to kill me. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, get me over to your uncle's house. I had an uncle that stayed out in South Memphis. Like, get me over there. So like, all right, like, well, first let me just like, it's a group of guys riding around the car looking for me. They trying to kill me. So my first thought, they knew where she stayed at. So I'm like, well, let me go and check on my grandmother. You know what I'm saying? So I went back to the house to check on my grandmother. She was fine. So that's when I told my uncle, told her, hey, you need to keep an eye on grandma. It's some stuff going down. Well, as I'm leaving back out the house to take my mom to South Memphis, these guys in this car pull up. Now, they didn't know me. They didn't see me, and they didn't see that my mom was in my car. So they started, walking toward my house. So I just waited. We were sitting in the car, and my mom kind of ducked down. And as soon as they all got out the car and started walking toward the house, I just hit the gas. So, man, we was on a high-speed chase through North Memphis. These guys chased me all through North Memphis. We jumped on the interstate to head toward South Memphis. So we got there, and I thought I had lost them. And it just so happened at the time, the car I had a box Chevy, but the camshaft was going out on it. So it was really slow, so I couldn't really get away from the guys. And so I thought I had lost them. But then when I got off the interstate over in South Memphis, and I remember we put up to a light, they was like 4 or 5 cars behind me. So they knew that if, because they were 4 or 5 cars behind me, if I could, went through the green light, they were going to lose me. So, man, these dudes jumped out in the car in the middle of traffic. And I just saw one dude had something in his hand. I thought it was it looked like a 12-gauge shotgun. And so I'm sitting at the light. Traffic's going this way. I'm sitting here at this light. The traffic's still going. And I'm looking at my rearview mirror, seeing these dudes about to approach. And I didn't know they was going to pull up and shoot me or what. So, man, it was one little break in the traffic, and I just hit the gas, and I just swerved, and I went across another car, because I was actually in the middle lane. So I went across that car, and, man, I just gassed. And right when I was getting ready to go, when I pulled off, the guy swung, and turned out it was a pipe, and he just swung it and hit the back of my trunk and put like this huge dent in my trunk. So I went down, made some turns, and then we end up losing then. So my mama jumped out or whatever, and she ran over to my uncle's house. So now I'm really scared. Like, oh man, I gotta go check back on grandma. So again, I go back to check on my grandma because, like I said, my grandma at the time, she was my everything, and she was fine. So I well, let me go tell my cousin what happened so he can keep an eye on my grandma. So I went down and tell my cousin what happened. So while I was down there talking to my cousin, these guys pull up. You know what I'm saying? They catch me. So they jump out the car, surround me. It's like 8 dudes. You know what I'm saying? They jump out the car and start surrounding me. So we start talking. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to calm the situation down. Cause I knew it was no way I would be able to whip all 8 these guys. So I'm just trying to talk to these dudes. They're like, man, what that B word at? And I'm like, man, first of all, that's my mama. I said, what's going on? So like, man, she said my uncle up, and now my uncle dead. So she got to die. You know what I'm saying? So they're like, man, who was you? I like, look, man, that was my mama, bro. I don't know what y'all got going on. I said, but man, let's talk about this. They're like, no, bro, you know what I'm saying? What's up? I like, look, man. I said, look, man, I'm not about that life. And I told, like I said, I never would try to be gang. I'm like, look, bro, I'm not about that life. I said, man, I just finished my first year of college, bro. I just want to make it back. I said, that's all I want to do. I just want to make it back to college, man. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to get caught up. I don't know what's going on. I ain't trying to get caught up. None of that. So when I said that, the guys actually started listening. They're like, oh, what school you going to? So I'm like, whew. You know what I'm saying? So I'm talking to the guys, and I'm thinking everything is over. And then you always got to have the one rowdy guy in the group. And the one guy was just like, man, F that. And then he just came across and hit me right in the face, like, pow. And then once he hit me, everybody else's style came in. So I'm feeling her. So luckily, I had kind of positioned myself when my back was against the wall. But I had guys on this side of me, and I had a car in front. So they can only come from the left and the right. So I did get in a good position where I can, watch my back, and they can only come from the left and right. So I'm just sitting there scrapping like both sides. Of course, they hit me. It's like 3-4 of them. So they hit me, and I'm hitting them, and we're just going back and forth. And then I remember this one guy, he did, the matter of fact, the guy that punched me the first time, the first punch, he grabbed a brick. And I never forget, he had the brick, and he had the brick like all the way back like here. And he was just getting ready to come down on top of my head right when I saw him. And one of my uncle's friend, my cousin's friend, just happened to come up and grabbed it. Like right as he was getting ready to bring the brick down on my head, he snatched the brick out of his hand. And I know to this day, had that dude hit me, I would probably been dead. Because, he was coming full force. He had it way back here. And just when he was getting ready to come down, they snatched it out of his hand. So then we just continued fighting. Then next thing you know, the police pulled up. You know what I'm saying? So the police pull up. And, of course, they flashing the loud horn. And then everybody stopped. So then, you know what I'm saying? So they set me down. And, it's that, we got that, in the hood, you got that no snitching policy. So they had actually jumped on my uncle before they jumped on me, kind of thing. And then, so when he walked up, and he had his pistol, so he had to throw his pistol in the house before the police got there, and because we was out there by his house. So when he walked back up, you know what I'm saying, the police like, man, what's going on? And then my cousin, he was just like, man, everything good. They like, man, look like, we got a call, commotion going on, blah, blah, blah. And he like, no, man, everything good. So they saw me, I'm sitting here, my clothes all ripped off me, my face is like this big, my nose stuff is bleeding. So the police know I'm the one that got beat up. So they asked me like, let me talk to you, son. And I'm like, okay. So they brought me up like, man, what happened? You know what I'm saying? These guys do something to you? And man, I was so stuck. I didn't know what to do because I knew it was a no snitching policy, in the hood. So I never forget. I looked over my uncle, and my uncle just said, he just did this. And I said, no, sir, I'm fine. He's like, are you sure? He said, because if you don't say something, we're going to have to let these guys go, and they're going to come back and get you. And I said, man, no, we're fine. We just had a misunderstanding. They're like, you sure? I was like, yes, sir. He's like, all right. Then he told the guy, said, hey, y'all need to get in this car and get out of here. You know what I'm saying? So all the guys, they jumped back in their car and they left. And then, you know what I'm saying? I just went to work. You know what I'm saying? And I never forget, I saw him again later that day, but they didn't mess with me because I didn't snitch on them. So it did kind of save my butt because they had respect me because I could have snitched and sent them all to jail. But they had, you know what I'm saying, I got some respect because I didn't snitch on them. You know what I'm saying? So that's just a little story. That's kind of the craziness I went through in Memphis. And that's why I knew I had to leave Memphis. You know what I'm saying? So I had to leave Memphis. So now let me get to the part. That was just kind of a little background. Those were some of the things I went through. And that's why I say God was with me my whole life, because I really should have been dead that day. You know what I'm saying? It was several other times before that. I've been robbed at gunpoint at least 3 times. I had a gun put in my face at least 3 times. Was robbed twice, and one was just a guy kind of showing off his gun, but the gun could have easily, went off. You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing. So, like I said, so I knew I need to get out of Memphis. So now fast forward, that's kind of my childhood in high school. So now fast forward, it's the end of high school. I'm getting ready to graduate. I was playing ball and everything. And I actually had a scholarship to go to a school in St. Paul, Minnesota. So that was about as far away from me as you can get, And I was actually getting ready to leave. I had my plans. I had been talking to the coach and everything. And I was getting ready to leave. Like I had like 2 weeks before I was getting ready to go off. This when all this happened. It was about 2 weeks before I was getting ready to go off to college. Before I actually went off to TSU. So it was about 2 weeks before then. I never forget. I was getting ready, making plans to go up there. And I remember my grandma came in and she told me, she said, like, look, she said, I know you got to get out of Memphis. She said, I know if you stay in Memphis, you're going to end up dead or in jail. She said, all I ask is that you at least say, you go to Minnesota, what if something happened to me? Because like I said, I was basically her caregiver. So she's like, what if something happened to me and you can't get home? She said, I understand you have to leave. She said, I never tell you not to leave. She said, but could you at least go somewhere close enough to where if something happened, you can come home? So I'm like, okay, fine. So just so happened that same week, like not even 2 days later, I got a letter from TSU, which is in Nashville, saying that, hey, I didn't have scholarships, but with the grant money and student loans that I could take out, that my tuition would be paid. As a matter of fact, I would have like $3,000 extra left over. So I was like, well, that's 2.5 hour drive. If something happened, I can get home. That's close enough. It was far enough away to get away from my family and the stuff that they was going through, but it was close enough to where I can get home if I needed to. You know what I'm saying? I was just out of arm's reach, so I knew they weren't going to come bother me, which it worked, because my family, I don't think, my mom has only been up here like once or twice, and I think my dad had been up here once. So, you know what I'm saying? A couple of cousins they was up in Nashville, and they came by and visited me. But, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have my family. I had to deal with that family drama. I was able to get away and start focusing on myself. So that's what I did. So I turned down the scholarship to Minnesota, the school in Minnesota, ended up going to TSU. So now, this was God stuff. So that end up at TSU, end up going to Nashville. TSU, first person in my family to ever go to college. So I had no clue what to expect. And I never forget, because I was working to take care of myself, I was broke. I was dead broke. I remember I showed up to TSU. The week before I left, my church took up like a collection for the high school kids that was graduating. And I never forget, they gave me like a little brown paper bag, and it had like $234 in it. So I came to Nashville with $234 in my pocket. That was it. I had my $234 and all the stuff in my room that I had accumulated from working, in high school, like, CD players and all that. That was it. When I came to Nashville, didn't know nobody, and I was just here by myself. And then ended up, my female best friend, she ended up there, and another good friend of mine from Boy Scout ended up there as well. But I didn't even know they was going. They didn't know I was going. We just happened to walk past each channel on campus one day. So I ended up with some friends up there, but it didn't start off like that. So now I get to college. All right, so this when things start going crazy. So I get to college, and I don't know if any of y'all been to college, but man, college is crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I got to college, and the first thing I did when I got to college, stopped going to church. Now, by this time, like now I'm 17, 18, this time I'm old enough to realize how rough my life had been. You know what I'm saying? I'm old enough to realize that, you know what I'm saying, the molestation that happened to me, how bad it was. Because I was in such denial with the molestation that when I saw, commercials and people like, hey, if you've been molested, you need to get help and all that, I used to feel bad for those people. Like, man, that's I can't imagine somebody that went through that. And I mean, so not that I was delusional, but I was in such denial, or I was so, it was so repressed that I didn't even realize that I was one of those people that had been molested that should have been getting that help. You know what I'm saying? Didn't even realize. So like I said, by the time I got older, I understood what sex was and how sex should be between a man and a woman and not two men. Then I realized, how bad I had it. And another thing I mentioned, I got molested, like I said, by a cousin on my mom's side. That started when I was 4 up until I was about 6 or 7. And then about 6 or 7, I had another cousin on my mom's side that moved in from up north, and he started molesting me as well. So he did it from when I was like 6 to about from 6, 7 to about 9 or 10. When I started getting a little older and he kind of cut it out, kind of thing. So from the age of about 4 to 5 to about 9 to 10, so I was being raped by these two guys on a regular basis. Like, it happened several times, and a lot of it is blocked out. That's how God is. Just it's not. But I do remember some of the details of sometimes. It was like certain things happen in certain situations that make me remember it, kind of thing. But that was so that was in my mind. So I really started kind of getting depressed about that. I really started developing this hatred toward God once I finally realized, like, man, because I got up to Nashville, and Nashville like a whole nother world to me. It was nice. They had nice little parks you can go to. You didn't have to worry about getting robbed. And I was around these other black people. Everybody was intelligent. It was love. It wasn't no hating, nobody trying to fight and kill each other. So Nashville was like Mayberry to me. So I enjoyed it. And I started seeing how good other people had lived. I had college roommates that we were really close to. I had this guy named Chris Hardaway, and we went and spent the weekend at his house. And like, man, his family was so nice, and his mom and dad was, just so nice. They had this nice house. And I started realizing, like, man, like, why did I not have this stuff? So I started to have this resentment, and I started realizing it wasn't until I got out of the Memphis element that I realized how bad my life had been. So I started getting kind of bitter toward God because of that. Down to that, on top of that, was the molestation. So the first thing I started doing, like when I got freshman in college, stopped going to church. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, all this stuff started hitting me, and then I stopped going to church. So I stopped going to church, and then you in college, there's a lot of drinking and drugs and all that. So I started drinking all the time, started smoking weed all the time, started hanging with these white guys. So I was like popping mushrooms and hydrocodones and all kinds of stuff. But the one thing I always said when I got into drugs, started messing with drugs, that I would never mess with coke. I said, I don't care what's going on, I would never mess with coke, because to me, coke is what ruined my life, because I saw what it did to my mom. So I messed with everything else, but I said I'll never mess with that coke. So that's what I did. So, man, I got to college. My first couple of years was just partying, drinking, smoking, kicking it, girls. And the whole college day. I lived the college life. You know what I'm saying? So what happened is, about my second, toward the end of my second year, my grandmother called. Because by this time, when me leaving, she ended up having to move in with one of her daughters to take care of her, because now I was gone. So I remember she called. It was so weird. It was almost ominous kind of thing. I remember she called me. She said, look, she said, you know what I did for you in your life? She said, the only thing I ask in return is that you take care of your brother. She said, your brother's not as smart as you. He's not as strong as you. He's going to need your help. She said, so if anything ever happened to me, just promise me you'll do everything you can to take care of your brother. So I'm like, all right, grandma, whatever. And lo and behold, not even a couple of months after that call, she ended up passing away. You know what I'm saying? So I made this promise, and I didn't think none of it. So about a year later, like right toward the end of my third year of school, I get a phone call. Turns out my brother had got in some trouble, and him and his dad was having some issues. So his dad basically kicked him out, and he ended up getting picked up. Walking around, he was supposed to be in school, so he got picked up for truancy kind of thing. But his dad didn't want him back at the house. So I get a call from DCS, and they were like, hey, we got your number. We got your brother in custody, and, either you can come get him, or he can stay in custody, and he'll be in custody with us. And at this time here, we had just turned 15. So they're like, well, he'll be in custody with us until he turns 18 and become an adult. So I'm like, man, I don't. But at the same time, now you got to understand, at this time, I'm a full-time college student. I had just got my first apartment. I had just got my first job working at Taco Bell. So I was established. I had a job, but I was working at Taco Bell. I wasn't in a position to take care of no kids, especially no teenager. But I was like, well, the government, they ain't gonna give me because like I said, we only 5 years apart. So I was 20, he was 15. So I'm like, there's no way they're gonna give a 20-year-old custody of a 15-year-old. So I'm like, and so in my mind, like, you know what, I'm gonna put the work in so I can say I did it, and hopefully they'll deny me and I don't have to worry about it. Well, guess what? I was sadly mistaken. I put the work in, and I actually got custody of my brother. You know what I'm saying? When I was 20 years old, I got legal custody of my brother. So that's how I ended up bringing him up to Nashville. So now, in my thinking, like I said, we was always close. I was always his protector. I was always taking care of him. So I figured, well, it's my brother. We'll kick it, get some girls here and there, do our thing. And, it'll be good. It'll be fun. Like we have a little bachelor pad kind of thing. Well, I was sadly mistaken. If any of you got kids now, teenagers are like the worst people on the planet. And he was the worst of the worst. Still to this day, this boy's a knucklehead. Y'all hear me talking about him time to time. But man, I mean, he was terrible. He was into drugs. He was, missing school and stuff like that, fighting at school. And the thing is, he had failed. He had failed a couple of times. So he was like 15, like in the 7th grade or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And he had been with me for like a couple of years. And he finally got up to high school. But I mean, he was like a sophomore. He was 18 years old. He was still a sophomore in high school because, he had failed or whatnot. So, but like I said, he lived in the streets, stuff like that, been in Memphis his whole life. So he just had the real, and part of my name, he just had a nigga mentality. That's how it was. So, he was going to school, getting in trouble, smoking weed and stuff like that, and I'm working full time. I'm putting myself through school full time. And at the time by this time too, I had also met my baby mama at the time. She's my wife now, but she's my baby mama. So, at that time we had our first kid too. So I'm juggling all this stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? So, and like I said, by this time I kind of got away from the alcohol and the drinking and the pills, but I was real heavy into weed. So I smoked a lot of weed, like a lot of weed. Like I woke up with a blunt in my hand. I went to bed with a blunt in my hand. That's how my day. I didn't even, matter of fact, I made sure I had one roll when I went to bed, so I won't have to wake up and roll it the next morning. I can just wake and bake. You know what I'm saying? So since I smoked so much, I was going through like an ounce of weed, like maybe once a week just by myself. I smoked about an ounce a week, if not a little bit more. But then my brother moved up. Like I said, he liked smoking weed as well. So we started going through it a little quicker. So then the little kids that he was hanging out with, they smoked weed. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, so what they would do, my brother asked me, hey, could you pitch them out? They'd like pitch me off some. So I would just, eyeball them like a gram or so, charge them $5, eyeball them a gram or whatever. So that's what I would do. And what was happening was the stuff I smoked was good stuff. And then I got good prices because I smoked so much, because I bought my weed by the ounce. I didn't buy like dubs. So every time I went to the weed man, I was going to get at least an ounce, if not, like a couple of ounces. Because, just keep me from going back, and I got cheaper prices that way. So that's why I didn't had them when I was eyeballing the weed to these guys, I would get them like fat sacks, basically. So, so word kind of got around, like, man, he wants weed, just go to Gerald's brother kind of thing. So next thing you know, I got like this little clientele. So I went from going through an ounce like a week, like every other day, basically, I was going through an ounce. So it got to a point where I'm having to go back to my dude like every other day. So he was actually a college student himself. And he was like, man, look, you can't be coming through here like this. Like, man, you're going to run me hot. He said, so I tell you what, he said, what I do is I give you a quarter pound, which is 4 ounces. If y'all don't know your weed, he said, I give you a quarter pound and go ahead. He said, I'll just front it to you. Go ahead and when you, get rid of all that, then, come back to me and I front you some more. So I'm not even thinking about it, because like I said, at this point, I never sold drugs, never imagined being a drug dealer. I just kind of fell into it, because I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, then I need to be, on point with it. I like to do everything wholehearted. So I went and got me a little scale and bought me some baggies, and next thing you know, I'm just selling little dime bag, little nickel bag. But as with sin, and this is something you see with sin, that's why you got to be careful with sin. Sin is always going to progress. It's going to make you, you can start off a little, I'm just going to sell and it's like, I just sell these little, my brother friend, because in my mind, I'd rather them get it from me than going and trying to find it on the street, somebody's going to mess them over or rob them or something like that. At least I know they safe. You know what I'm saying? I even let them hang out in my house to smoke. So I had the hangout spot. I was, and then when me trying to be the cool parent, it's just like in my mind, like, man, at least they safe here kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So my house was a spot. So anytime you came over to my house, man, it was a group of people there, kids or young adults or whatever. And man, because I was, like I said, I was still in college myself, so my college would hang out too. So you know what I'm saying, we smoking, drinking. It was always girls there. So it was honestly, my house was like a 24/7 party. Like, you know what I'm saying, you come there at any time. We was kicking it, playing video games, smoking weed or whatever. So I got into selling drugs, doing that, and then started off, like I said, just selling dimes and nicks. But then again, word got around, because thing is, I didn't believe in bag taxing. And if you don't know drugs, then good for you. You know what I'm saying? But a bag tax is when somebody weigh your weed out in the bag. So, they supposed to give you 2 grams. If they weigh it out in the bag, you really get like 1.3 grams, because the bag weight anywhere between a half a gram and 0.7 kind of thing. So I didn't do that. Like, if I gave you, if you can't get a gram from me or 2 grams, you got a gram or 2 grams, if not 2.1 or something. You know what I'm saying? So in drug terms, that was the fat sacks kind of thing. So my clientele built quickly, because everybody like, man, go to him. And then the more, of course, the more I did like drug to do, the more you got, the cheaper it was. And I was always on point with my stuff. So next thing you know, I got that quarter pound, that's to show you I'm fat. So I got the quarter pound, and within like a week, you know what I'm saying, I just, the word spreading around, I was done with that in like a week. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right. So I went back and do like, man, that was fast. I tell you what, let me give you a half a pound. So we got the half pound, and again, you know, I was able to sell it even cheaper. I was able to give even fatter sack. So I went through that in like a week. So I went back like, oh dang, like man, I tell you what, let me give you a, you know what I'm saying, give you a pound. So next thing you know, man, I started getting the pounds, and because I was buying about a pound, I was able to get the pound, depending on how good it was, between $400 and $500. So before $400 and $500 a pound. So I didn't do the math, but so a pound is 16 ounces, and then each ounce is 28 grams, and I was selling each gram for $5. So I was paying $500 for it, up to $500 for it, but I was making, you know, all that. I didn't do the math, but I was making that much more off of it. You know what I'm saying? So it was really, man, it was like lucrative. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, it was nice. We was at my crib. I only let certain people come over. You know what I'm saying? I didn't mess with just anybody. Matter of fact, the only way you can get anything from me is one of my boys from my crew had to bring it to you. So next thing you know, man, we just set up this little network. And I just had to, because I was living in Bellevue down in Nashville at the time. So I just had a little Bellevue. And like I said, I wasn't in the hood. I wasn't no gangster or nothing. It was just a nice little setup. I was just a college kid trying to make some money. So, of course, I'm selling weed, like I said, seeing progression. So next thing you know, sometimes people come to me like, hey, I got these pills. Could we trade me some weed for pills? So then I started having pills. And then, of course, kids would come and they would get into the pills and stuff. So they want pills. So I would get hydrocodones, Oxycontin, and stuff like that. And then also shrooms, you know what I'm saying? I was in Bellevue, which is a white area, so them white boys, they like shrooms. So I started getting into the shrooms. So I tried that for first time. Never do that again, but it was quite an experience, you know what I'm saying? So like I said, so basically then ecstasy was real big then. So I started kind of getting ecstasy. I had a plug to get some ecstasy. So I had everything except for cocaine. So, you know what I'm saying? So this went on for like a year and a half, 2 years. Not gonna get into detail that y'all know come to life, but man, I mean, I had the cars, now I'm in college and I was still working a full-time job as well. So I was in college working full-time, had a full-time, going to college full-time, working full-time, selling dope full-time. So, I mean, I was grinding, man. I remember I never slept. I never really slept. I just took naps. Like I would have like a 2 or 3 hour break or a 2-3 hour with my phone ringing, and I'll doze off, give me 2-3 hours sleep, and get back up and get to it. You know what I'm saying? So that was going on. But everything was good. I had this really nice apartment out in Bellevue. I had a car. My brother had a car. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we had at the time, PlayStation was the big deal. We had a PlayStation, had a big TV, my own apartment. I mean, we had jacuzzis at the apartment. I mean, it was just nice. It was everything a man could want. So this going on about a year and a half, man. And I felt like, man, I got everything a man could want. But at the same time, I noticed I still was never happy. You see what I'm saying? I was still never happy no matter what I did. Like when everybody was around and we was kicking and partying, yeah, I was like, oh man, you know, it's the stuff. But when I was by myself, man, I was always depressed. I remember even thinking about killing myself. I was thinking like, you know, what's the point of my life? You know what I'm saying? I felt like my life had no purpose to it, kind of thing, you know. So that went on, and that was kind of something I dealt with alone. I never brought it out to you because when I was around, I was just a man, you know what I'm saying, all that. So I had this little crew. Now my crew was mostly high school kids, you know what I'm saying? That's the thing. And I'm ashamed of it now, you know what I'm saying? I feel bad about it now, but it was high school kids, you know what I'm saying? And one of the requirements for the kids, if they wanted to sell for me or wanted to be in our crew, they had to go to school. Because I told these kids, like, look, I don't hang out with losers. I said, so if you're going to hang out with me, you got to go to school every day. You got to either be going to school every day or you got to be working. You got to be doing something to take care of yourself. I said, now if you're going to school, you got to have at least a 3.0 GPA. You know what I'm saying? That sounds silly. Like, how you going to give kids a requirement to sell drugs? But the thing was, and the way I explained it to her, I said, man, that's how you fall on the radar. I said, you see these rappers and all these guys bragging and they walking around with their pants hanging out, like, these ain't real thugs. I said, the people that are real thugs in this world, real gangsters in this world, you would never know it until it's too late. I like, that's how you fly on the radar. I said, if you going to school, if you missing school all the time, or you going to school fighting, causing problems, making bad grades, I said, man, you're going to be the one they looking at. Soon as something bad happens, they checking you. I said, that's how you get caught. I said, but if you a perfect attendance, straight A student, I said, man, the teacher will catch you some drugs and they'll let you slide. They give you the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, you just made a mistake. I said, that's how you slide on the radar. So if you want to sell for me, then that's what you got to do. So I did that, man. And these kids that was in my crew, I had like 5 or 6 of them. They went from being like either dropouts or like, having 1.5, 1.9 GPA to being like straight A students. You know what I'm saying? Applying to college. All because they wanted to sell drugs for me kind of thing. So at least that's what I was thinking. So this went on again a year and a half, and this was started to come into fruition when God started really start showing me, God kind of started showing up. So this goes about a year and a half, right at 2 years. I'm selling this. I'm taking care of my baby mama. You know what I'm saying? We had 2, 3 kids at this time. So I'm taking care of my baby mama. I didn't want her to work because I didn't want her to leave my kids with somebody and they end up being molested. And that was one of the things, like I said, about me being molested as a child, that's one thing I said. I said, if I ever had kids, I would make sure my girl would never have to work. That way she don't have to leave them with anybody else and I ain't got to worry about them being molested. That's why I've always worked so hard. So again, that was a bad thing, but it really is still a characteristic of me that I'm happy about. Because it's been like that. Matter of fact, my wife about to get her first job this week that she's had in like, I think we've been married almost 19 years. So the first time she's worked in probably 15 years. She did a little some last a few months ago, but it didn't work out. But she hasn't really worked in like, the 19 years that we've been together. You know what I'm saying? And it's because I always said I didn't ever want to leave our kids on anybody else. But now our kids are older. She did get her butt out there and work because we need some money. You know what I'm saying? So, so I'm doing all that. Got making money hand over hand. I didn't came like this big guy in these kids' eyes. I'm like, to them, I was really small fries, but to them, I'm like Al Pacino kind of thing. I mean, everything was good, man. Like I said, and because the thing is, if you came over to our place, it was positive. I didn't hang out with part of my friends, I didn't hang out with no niggers, no nigga mentality. Like, don't come over here with no fighting, no drama. We come over here, we're going to kick it, we're going to have some girls, we're going to have some drinks, we're going to smoke some weed, we're going to play a video game, we're going to watch Chappelle's show. That's it. It wasn't no foolishness going on in my house, and everybody knew that. And I had a pistol on my side to make sure they understood it. You know what I'm saying? So again, this goes on for a couple of years or whatever. And even though I had all this stuff that the world say you should have, I had the notoriety, I had the cars, the clothes, the girls, I had all that stuff. I still was not happy. Matter of fact, I was miserable, like I said, on the inside. And whenever I was by myself, that misery came out. That's why I always kept people around me, because when I was by myself with my own thoughts, that's when the depression came in. I would often think about, how I got molested. That's why I couldn't sleep without smoking, because I just, sometimes the thought that get in my head of, those moments I do remember of it, and I couldn't sleep kind of thing. So this goes on. And it gets to a point, so now this goes on for, like I said, a couple of years. That was from like 2000, toward the end of 2000 to about 2003. So now 2003 is where the story really get ready to turn. This is where the Lord start coming in. So it's now it's right toward the end of 2003. Like I said, I got this little network going on with the weed and the pills and all that stuff, and everything's going good. I'm making money, but I'm still not making enough. You know what I'm saying? So this guy hits me up. This guy, he used to come and get weed from me, and he actually sold coke. And I remember he was talking. He like, man, he was just watching my little operation this one day. He like, man, you making a buku off just weed, bro. He like, man, could you imagine how much more you would make you start selling coke? He said, man, you start selling coke, man. I mean, you'll be able to just burn money. And he like, with the operation you got and the clientele you already got, he said, man, that's all we need. He said, matter of fact, we need to go into business together. He said, man, I got the coke connect, you got the weed connect, because I was still getting the pounds for the $400 to $500. He said, man, we can buy us a house, bro, and just set up, and we can just be a one-stop shop. Everything people want, we can have it there. You know what I'm saying? He said, what you think? So like I said, I always said that I would never sell coke. But at the time, like I said, I was starting to have my kids. I think we had 3 at the time. Still had my brother. I was kind of taking care of him. He was working, but most of the work he was doing was for the drug business. So he wasn't actually bringing in like no income. So, you know what I'm saying? So I was really needing the money at the time. And we had I think we had the 2 kids and we had another one on the way. I think Tay was on the way. So I was like, man, I don't know. I said, let me think about it. Now at this point, it had been probably like 5 years since I had been to church. At this point, like I go to like on Easter, but like seriously attending church on a regular basis, it had been about 5 or 6 years. And really, I had just kind of turned my back on God. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, once it all hit me, kind of what I had been through and what had happened in my childhood, I had just kind of turned my back on God, kind of thing. So you know what I'm saying? So I wasn't really, God was like the last thing on my mind. So you know what I'm saying? But I was still just doing my thing. So when the dude asked me that, I thought about it. I'm like, man, I really do. I said, but I promised I never, you know what I'm saying, never do that. But I was at a fork in the road. I need to do something. I did need to do something. Like I said, the money was with us having the 2 kids and another one on the way. The money wasn't stretching far enough anymore. Even with the selling the dope and the working and everything I was doing, it still wasn't enough. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't enough to have your girl and to sit at home with 3 kids and not be able to work. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't enough. So I need to do something. So I knew I was at a fork in the road where I was either going to go deep into this drug life or do something else. I didn't know what that something else was, but I knew those were the options. Either I was going to go deep in the drug life or I need to find something else to do. So again, excuse me, y'all. At this point, I had been in church in like 5-6 years. Definitely didn't have no relationship with God. I definitely wasn't God's servant that I am today. But something just told me to holler at God first. You know what I'm saying? Just like I said, it just like that foundation that my grandma had built, you know what I'm saying, came back up and just like holler at God first. So that's what I did, man. And I didn't go humbly to God. I didn't get on my knees and like, oh, Father God, this and that and that. I was chilling somewhere one night and I was thinking about this offer this dude made. And I was like, you know what, God? I said, look, man, honestly, I don't even know if you're real or you just another fairy tale they use to control us. You know what I'm saying? I say, honestly, as bad as my life has been, it's hard for me to believe you are real. And if you are real, you definitely don't have no love for me because I feel like I'm cursed. Because that was my thing. Like, even though I was doing all this stuff, the reason why the money wasn't enough, because, if you know anything about the drug game or any kind of game, you're going to have losses. You're going to have some wins, but you're going to have some losses as well. And sometimes those losses hit hard, you know what I'm saying? So it seemed like every time I got 2-3 steps ahead, I was always getting pushed 4 or 5 steps back. So that's why the money was never enough. So that's why I told God, like, man, look, God, I got to do something. I said I never did sell coke, but right now this looking like my only option. I said, so I tell you what, you need to either show up and show me without a doubt that you're real, or just leave me alone so I can live my life and I ain't going to have nothing else to do with you. I'm going to start selling this coke and I ain't got nothing else to do with you. Because anybody that know me knows I'm 100% in. Whatever I do, I'm 100% every single time. So I knew that if I started selling that coke, I knew which direction my life was going to go. It was going to go 100% into, I want to be the best. I was trying to be like, Scarface for real. I already knew if I went that way, that's how it was going to be. And I didn't want to go there. My spirit in me didn't want me to go that way, but I didn't know no other options. So that's why I just kind of said that prayer, didn't think nothing else about it. So next couple of weeks, next thing you know, everything just started getting good. You know what I'm saying? It got real good. Kept getting better weed for cheaper prices. Everything got real good. So fast forward, now it's the end of 2003. It was Christmas time, 2003. I never forget it. So it was like the week before Christmas. So I'm thinking like with the kids being out of school and everything, and you know what I'm saying, being out when no parents got to deal with the kids all day, they're gonna need some weed and so they're gonna drugs. So what I did, all the money I had stored up, I went and I just read up. I paid my bills and everything I had left, I just read up. I just bought as much drugs as I could. So I had a closet full of drugs. That's why I kept them in my closet. I had a closet full of drugs. Like literally the day after I bought them drugs, it was about the week before Christmas, my phone stopped ringing. I mean, just stopped ringing. I think over the up to like Christmas, I might have sold like a quarter. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I was selling nothing. So now I'm stuck because I got all these drugs, but nobody to buy them. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention Christmas coming up. You know what I'm saying? My kids, I want to get my kids something for Christmas, and I couldn't even get my kids enough for Christmas. So I remember like, it was a couple of days before Christmas, and I'm sitting there, I'm just down in the dumps. I'm just depressed. And one of the kids that was living with me at the time, because his mom had kind of kicked him out, because like I said, he didn't want to go to school and stuff. So he was staying with me. I call him Roach, a little white guy. And he like, man, what's going on? I said, man, he said, you look like you depressed. I said, I am. He said, what's going on? I said, man, I can't even get my kids enough for Christmas. He like, what? He's like, you supposed to be the big drug dealer. You got no money. I said, man, I got plenty of drugs, but nobody ain't buying them. I can't go to Toys R Us and lay an ounce on the counter and let me get this toys. I said, man, I don't know what I'm going to do, bro. He said, man, I'll see what I can do. And I didn't know what he meant. So what he did was he went and told his mom, like, hey, my friend is in this bad situation. He's not going to be able to get his kids enough for Christmas. Could you help? And his mom's really nice. Like, I love her to death. Miss Squirrely, I called her. Really nice lady. So she like, you know what I'm saying? She like, okay. So the day before Christmas, she pulls up to my house in a minivan full of toys. I'm talking about the day she had the thing packed. And you know what I'm saying? And me, and what she told me, she's like, hey, see some of your folks out here. And my boy went out there, man, we just started toting toys into our house. I'm talking about brand new bikes, all kind of stuff. Honestly, really the best, probably more than I would have been able to give them, definitely at that time, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, and really just saved my Christmas. But at the same time, that saved my Christmas. I was happy because I'm going to be give my kids something for Christmas. But that humbled me at the same time. Because at the same time, like, man, look, I'm supposed to be this big, bad drug dealer, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? The big man on the block. And I had to depend on this little white lady to buy my kids something for Christmas. So I'm like, what am I really doing? And why am I doing it? You know what I'm saying? So I started realizing the instability of the life I was living and how I really wasn't going nowhere. I was really just running in a circle and didn't even realize it. I thought I was getting ahead and really I wasn't. And I was actually falling behind. So that started hitting me. And then once I got to that point, once I humbled, it's kind of like the prodigal son said, you know, if you read the story, the prodigal son said when his son was sitting down there eating with the pigs, he came to himself. And I think that was my moment when I came to myself and I realized, like, man, what am I really doing? I'm out here taking all these risks. And I was just getting ready to graduate from college too, you know what I'm saying? So I was on my last semester of college, this close to having my degree in chemistry, you know what I'm saying? And I'm taking all these risks and, you know what I'm saying, thinking I'm getting ahead and I can't even do something as simple as buy my kids Christmas present. What am I really doing? So I came to myself and I humbled myself. And I was like, man, I really need something else. Like I finally realized it wasn't it. And I think that was the moment God like, all right, I can work with him now. So from that moment on, I just started having this feeling like that I need to confess what I was doing. I need to just, you know, confess. Not necessarily like Catholics go to a priest or something. I just felt like I need to confess, like I hadn't been honest with God kind of thing. And again, I didn't have no relationship with God at the time, so I didn't really understand it. But I just had this overwhelming feeling like I need to confess kind of thing. And it was just nonstop. Like to the point where I couldn't sleep at night because I was just like, I needed to get this off my chest, but I had no clue how to do it or who to do it to, but I knew I needed to get something on my chest. And at the same time, still not sending no money, so I'm broke as all get out. You know what I'm saying? This is the days after Christmas, I'm broke as all get out. And now I'm not sleeping. And I thought I wasn't sleeping because I was broke and I was just stressed out, but it was just because I was under conviction about what I was going through. So I'm sitting there, I'm barely sleeping, not getting into sleep kind of thing. And it was just something just kept saying, you need to confess. So then it hit me. You know what I'm saying? One night, I'll never forget, it was the day, it was December 31st, 2003. Because it was the day before New Year, it was New Year's Eve. You know what I'm saying? And that feeling, that conviction had got on me so strong, and like, all right, I got to do something. So I'll never forget, that was that morning of December the 31st. It was the morning of like 2, 3 in the morning. I got out of my bed, I grabbed some paper and an ink pen, and I just started writing. And I started writing. And when I started writing, I just wrote everything that I was doing, everything that I knew I shouldn't have been doing. Drugs, women, you know what I'm saying? Cause like I said, I had my girl, at the time we had 3 kids, but I mean, I, you know, had all kind of other side chicks and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? So everything that I knew I shouldn't have been doing, that I was doing, I just started writing it down. And by the time I got done, I had like a 5-page letter. I'm talking about 5 pages of all the stuff I shouldn't been doing, all the stuff I was doing I shouldn't been doing. So I got it, and it finally felt like that release almost. And then that little voice almost, like, not, I won't say a voice, but that conviction or that feeling was like, all right, now you need to send this to somebody. So I'm like, well, who am I going to send this to? You know what I'm saying? Like, who would even care? So at the time, the guy that I told you, my scoutmaster that I met, Mr. Allen, he's my scoutmaster. He had a year or so before this, he co-signed for me to get a brand new car. I was a kid when they first came out. They was terrible cars, but I was able to get one brand new. I was the first one, you know what I'm saying, fresh off the lot kind of thing. And over the last years, my money was so tied up in my drug business. I was so concerned with my drug business, I just stopped paying the car. Like, I mean, I had been turned to that big of a piece of crap that this man put his you know what I'm saying, his well-being, his credit worthiness in my hands, and I just stopped paying the car. And then not only did I stop paying the car, no, I stopped even answering. You know what I'm saying? I didn't answer the phone when he called or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So he had no clue what was going on kind of thing. And this guy, he was a real devout Christian. I mean, real big about the Bible. You know, he was really strict. He was a military dude, so he was really strict. And he actually had got into some altercations and kind of disowned one of his own sons because he got into drugs. So I was kind of like an adopted son. So I knew he would want to hear this from me. So, you know what I'm saying? So that was going through my head, like, well, I ain't gonna send it to him. And then the spirit was just like, send it to him. So, all right. So that morning when I got up, got me an envelope and stamp, you know what I'm saying, put his address on it, you know what I'm saying, put it in the mailbox. And I never forget when I dropped it in the mailbox, I finally had that sense of release or relief that pressure was off of me. You know what I'm saying? So that day I actually went home and went to sleep. And the first time I had got some sleep. So when I went home, went to sleep, I woke up, my phone started ringing, and my phone didn't stop ringing for 2-3 days straight. You know what I'm saying? So within one night, I guess it was New Year's, now they was ready to party. Man, I sold out everything I had. I sold out like in a day. So then I sold out. I went and read up, sold out. I went and read up and sold out. I sold out 3 times in 1 week. You know what I'm saying? So it was popping like now. So I went from being broken and all humble and depressed to like now it's popping again. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm back on top like, it was just a little fluke. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm doing my thing. So now about this time, this guy, the coke dealer, he came back like, hey man, what we gonna do? You know what I'm saying? By this time, I had told him a few weeks to think about, going into a business with him to get the coke. He's like, all right man, what we gonna do? He said, because he said, we're gonna take us some time to find a house or find a good spot. He said, but I want to have this set up by spring, somewhere early summer. He's like, so what are we gonna do? So, but at the time, like everything was going so good with the weed, I had so much money at this time. I like, man, honestly, I said, I'm actually doing really good right now, bro. Like, I don't know if it's necessary for me actually bring that extra drama into my life when I'm doing as good as I am. You know what I'm saying? It ain't no need to be greedy because I'm doing good. But he convinced, like, no, bro, I'm telling you, man, you be doing so much better. To do that. So, all right. I said, I tell you what, man. I said, just give me a couple more weeks. I said, give me a few more weeks and I'll let you know for sure. So this was like I said, the first week of January. And I said, I'll let you know for sure. He said, all right, man, but don't take too long, bro. He said, I'm telling you, we need to be set up by the summer. I said, all right, bet. So then that's when I started feeling the pressure. Like I said, I didn't know what it was, but there was definitely something on me. And from that point on, like from the day I wrote the letter and put it in the mailbox, it was something over me. Like I just felt different. And I didn't know what it was. And to be honest, I felt like I was enlightened because it's like, next thing you know, I had this confidence. I was confident. And it seemed like everything I wanted, I got. Whether it was drugs or women or whatever it was I wanted, I got. It's like everything I wanted, I got. All the people I wanted to hang around, I was hanging around. It was just like I was a man. Like life was great for about, you know what I'm saying, there's 5 or 6 weeks. And I mean, I was just like, I went from being on the bottom to the top. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, man, life was great. But even with that, I still wasn't happy. There was still something in me that was just like, man, this is good now. But, you know what I'm saying? I just knew it wasn't going to last. Like, what I had going on wasn't going to last. So this happens for, like I said, this goes on about 4 or 5 weeks. And this when the story finally comes to a head when God finally steps in. So this goes on for another 5 or 6 weeks. I never forget it. Matter of fact, today is February the 13th. It was a February the 13th when it happened, when God really first started, just introduced. Like I said, up until this point, I just been under conviction. But I still hadn't had that walk with God just yet. So it was February 13th, and I'll never forget it because it was a Friday the 13th. Now, the job I was working at the time, I worked at this place called Cobble Bottom, which we worked with, we was caregivers for people with mental retardation, and I worked third shift. So I would work from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. And like so we was working when they would sleep. So basically all we would do, we just had to go in like once an hour and check and make sure they were breathing because they had patients that have stopped breathing while they were sleeping and end up dying. So that was basically our job to make sure they stayed in the bed and make sure they was breathing and, you know what I'm saying, and then we got them dressed when they got up in the morning and got them breakfast and stuff like that. So most of the night we just spent sitting around, and like I said at the time, I was a big drug dealer, so I had like the Xbox, I had an Xbox and a PlayStation, and then when I lived in Bellevue, and everybody in Bellevue that worked in Bellevue knew me. So like I had a guy that worked at Papa John's, so I got free pizza whenever I wanted. It was like a video store out there. So I got any of the new movies or videos. I got them before they came out. You know what I'm saying? I had them. I had the latest electronics. I had a person who wrote in the punch. I like everything I wanted, I had. So I would take my game up there, go in there, especially on like a Friday night, go in there with pizza and video games, and we would sneak out back and smoke weed. You know what I'm saying? So it was just kicking it, and that's what we did most of the nights. Well, I'll never forget this particular night, Friday the 13th, and we were sitting there. We was a group of us. We playing cards. And everything was so good, man. I was just in a good spirit. So I remember I was shuffling cards, and I was throwing people cards, I was flipping people cards over, and I was just, people can tell I was just physically just in a good mood. You know what I'm saying? And I remember this one white guy, his name was Randy. He's like, man, you in a good mood tonight. Like, what's going on with you? And I said, man, and me and Randy, we used to have these like philosophical, biblical discussions kind of thing every now and again. And like I said, it's like, I was upset at God. I didn't hate God or was an atheist, but I was just like, man, but I was doubting God, like heavy doubt, like to where I was almost like he didn't exist. So me and Randy would have these conversations, and so Randy, we were talking, and I was just like, man, he's like, man, you in a good mood? What's going on? I said, man, I think I'm enlightened. And he said, what do you mean enlightened? I said, man, I'm enlightened. He said, why you say that? I said, I don't know, man. I'm like, everything been going so good for me right now. I really think God want me to sell dope. You know, and he just bust out the laugh. He's like, bro, that's the dumbest shit I ever heard. He's like, God wants you to sell dope. He said, why the hell would you say something like that? And I explained to him. So I was talking about like how everything was going good, because from the first of the year, every single time I ran out and I went to re-up, I found better dope for cheaper prices every single time. Every time I went back, they were like, "Oh man, I know this stuff I got you last week was good. This even better." You know what I'm saying? And it's cheaper. And it's just weird because that don't happen in the dope game. If you got better stuff, the price used to go up, but it was going the opposite way. And then now on top of that, by this time, like I said, these kids, they had been, selling me for the last couple of years. So now they went from losers to being like, top students in school, applying to college. And I was explaining how all these kids was coming to me, and I was helping all these kids out in their lives and getting to where they need to be. So I'm like, man, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going through like, yeah, man, I'm doing this. And because these kids want to sell dope for me, they doing this. And I'm changing their lives. I'm like, man, I just think this is what God want me to do. He want me to sell dope. He said, bro, you an idiot. He said, you're a fool if you think God wants you to sell dope. He said, God don't want you to sell no dope. Just because everything going good don't mean God is in it. He said, the devil could have easily did that as well. I said, nah, bro, I'm telling you, I'm enlightened. That's God there. He said, bro, God don't want you to sell dope. He said, I'm telling you that. He said, because, and I said, well, man, if it ain't God, if it's the devil, and this is how arrogant I was. I was like, if it ain't God, the devil, whatever it is, man, you know what I'm saying? If I got to go to hell to get these kids to have a better life, then, I make that sacrifice. And dude said, he said, all right, you know what I'm saying? That sounds good. He said, but I'm going to tell you something. He said, I know God don't want you selling that dope. God is not in this. He said, because even though you wouldn't make that sacrifice, he said, I'm going to tell you something about God. He said, God wants obedience over sacrifice. He said, yeah, you're selling this dope, you helping all these kids out, you're improving their lives, but you're doing something and living a life that doing things that you're not supposed to do. He said, therefore, I know God is not in that. He said, so God is nowhere near there, bro. He said, God likes obedience over sacrifice. So we talked for a little bit in that time. And I'm like, all right, man, I want to hear that. So you kind of blowing my high kind of thing. So, we went on the rest of the night, didn't really think nothing of it. So the way we work, what I'm saying, you had every other weekend off. So that just happened to be my weekend off that Friday night. Like I said, it was a Friday the 13th. That's why I never forget it. Because normally I have like really bad days. I used to always have bad days on Friday the 13th. But ever since that day, Friday the 13th has been great days for me. You know what I'm saying? So today is the 13th. So it was exactly 19 years ago today when I first really started coming under conviction. You know what I'm saying? So even though I left that conversation and I just kind of blew dude off like, he don't know what he's talking about, that stuck with me. You know what I'm saying? It stuck with me. And that whole day, it's just that line, God likes obedience over sacrifice. It just stuck with me. You know what I'm saying? And it was really brought my heart into conviction even more. So, again, I was out there Friday. I went home, got a little sleep, got up. It was the weekend. You know what I'm saying? It was Valentine's weekend, so I knew it was going to be a big weekend. I went and read up like I normally do. Went and read up for the weekend, got ready to kick it for the weekend. So that next day, and I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying this because this is what it was. So the next day was Valentine's Day. So I had to take care of, you know what I'm saying? I had my baby mama. Now, at that time, we had our 3 kids. Like I said, we had our 3 kids. Then I had my brother. But, you know what I'm saying? So my baby mama was my main girl, but I had to take care of my side chicks too. So I had like 4 dates set up that day. It was 4 or 5. I can't remember. You know what I'm saying? I always have to make sure my wife ain't listening when I tell this part. Even though it's been 19 years ago, she hates this part. But I had like 4 or 5 dates set up that day, you know what I'm saying? So I started off, me and her, we got breakfast, then I dropped her off, went and picked up this other girl, hung out with her. So that's how the day was gonna go. I would drop off one, go pick up another. Well, in the middle of that, this guy now, the dude that wanted to sell the coke, his name was Slick Rick. That's what I call him, Slick Rick. And he had these other 2 guys with him that was like his goons. And one dude was named Mandricus, and the other dude's name was Yoshun. So they was like his little goons or whatever. So over the last couple of weeks, I had noticed Yoshun and Mandricus had been hanging out in my place. But like I said, whenever anybody was in my place, it was the party spot. We was all kicking it, smoking it, joking, cracking jokes, things of that nature. But they wouldn't. Like, well, Mandrikas wouldn't. He would just kind of sit in the corner and he'll smoke, but he wouldn't participate. He was just like a sad sack. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, what's wrong with this dude kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? But I was so arrogant. Now my Memphis instinct kicked in. I'm like, man, is this dude watching you? But again, I was so arrogant, like, man, ain't no way they'll try me. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't do that because this is the kind of dude he was. He was one of those people that like he'll hang out with you and shoot you on the way out the door. He was just a bad dude. You know what I'm saying? So, but I never thought that he would try me, or at least I was so arrogant. I was like, well, it ain't no way he's gonna try me. So I just didn't pay no attention. But this had been happening for a couple of weeks. So fast forward, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I just dropped this girl off. He hits me up and he was like, man, he said, I need to go. He told me, he said, hey, I need to go rob. He said, I got some white people. This was on a Saturday. It was February 14th. It was a Saturday that day. And he was like, man, there's some white people I'm going to rob Monday. He said, but because of my records, I can't get bullets to my gun. So would you mind, going with me to go get some bullets for my gun? Now, I was living so wild and crazy at the time that now I know, like, that's insane. You go get bullets for his gun and he shoot somebody, then you go in jail for accessory for getting them the bullets. But it's like I said, at that time, I was living so wild and crazy. I'm like, sure, come scoop me up. No big deal. You know what I'm saying? So I called the girl. I had a date that I was supposed to go on, and she was actually the main one I wanted to go on that day. You know what I'm saying? So I told her, I said, man, hey, can we reschedule for tomorrow? I said, I just got something that came up that I really need to take care of. If you don't mind, can we reschedule for tomorrow? And she was like, sure. So that opened up that time. So the guy comes and picks me up. Now, it's weird because, one, I hate riding with people. I hate going somewhere and I have to ride with somebody else because it's like it gives them control over what I do. Because if I want to leave and they don't want to leave, then I'm stuck. So I hate riding with people. And you know what I'm saying? But for some reason, this day, I just went and jumped in the car with this dude. You know what I'm saying? And I went by myself. Normally I'm going to do something like that. I take one of my boys with me, but I went by myself. And I never forget. It was so eerie because I got in the car and it was the guy that was driving, who I didn't even know who the driver was. And it was his boy, Yoshun, was in the front seat. And then he was sitting in the back with me. Mandriga was sitting in the back with me. And then it was me. And now normally when we, like I said, we together, because Mandriga, he used to like to rap and stuff. So we've been freestyling, just kicking it, just, you know what I'm saying, and smoking or something like that. But I got it was just silent. It was just weird. It was real silent. And nobody was saying nothing. So, you know what I'm saying? So that's what the first time in my life I can recall what a Lord, like, spoke to me. You know what I'm saying? That was speaking to me. I ain't gonna say spoke to me like I heard a voice, but started speaking. It was the first time where my spirit just kind of took control of me. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? Started speaking through me. So I'm sitting there, it's quiet. And then next thing you know, man, I just had this urge to start writing. So I had some paper in my pocket. So I pulled some paper out. Matter of fact, I had got written up for being late. That's what I wrote it on. I had got written up for being late that morning. So I had to envelope whenever they wrote you up for being late, because I work for the state. So they put you in this like big manila envelope and all that. So I had got written up for being late that morning. And so I pulled it. I had that still in my pocket. So I pulled it out and I just started writing. And I took out a pen. I just started writing. And it was so weird because it's like I wasn't even thinking. It was just like stuff was coming to me and I was just writing it down. And so the ride, I lived in Bellevue, and the place we was going to get the bullets was on Dickinson Road. So that's about a 25, 30 minute, 30, 35 minute drive, depending on traffic kind of thing. And back then, traffic wasn't as bad. Nashville ain't as big as it was then. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't as big as it is now. So I remember, and the whole time, like, I didn't talk to them or nothing. I just kind of went in this zone. I just started writing. And I never forget when I wrote the last word. Literally, as I wrote the last word, the car came to a stop. And I kind of like looked around like, they like, hey man, we here. What's up? I was like, oh. I said, yeah, let me go in. And when I looked down, I had a song. What I was writing was a song, and a song called God's Will. And it talks about how everything happens for a reason. Like everything that happens in your life, good, bad, or ugly, happens for a reason. You know what I'm saying? So that was this song we're talking about. So it was weird because, like I said, at the time I had really been in church for about 5 or 6 years, let alone have the mentality or even the wherewithal to write a song talking about how everything happens for a reason and God is good and all that kind of thing. So I'm like, man, it's weird, you know what I'm saying? But I ain't thinking nothing else. Whatever. So I just folded up and I just stuck it. I mean, the full song. It was three verses, the chorus, everything, full song. You know what I'm saying? So I wrote it. I just looked at it. I just folded up, put it back in my pocket. So I go into the store to get the bullets, and I'll never get the guy. He asked for some 22 bullets, And he said, can I get 20? I think he said 22 special or something like that. I can't remember because I'm not a gun guy. But it was 22 with a word on the end. I don't know what it was. But he was like, no, but I remember there was 22 bullets. And so I went to the store. And now at the time, I guess I got to tell this detail, the reason why it was so significant is because at the time I actually had I told you I had a gun, but I had a legal handgun carrying permit. So I actually had a license to carry a gun to where I can walk around because I never been arrested. So I actually legally got a gun to where I can walk around with a gun on my side kind of thing. So I actually had a pistol. I had a handgun license. So I can, definitely I can, carry a gun, definitely buy bullets. But when I walk into the sporting goods store to buy the bullets, the guy wouldn't sell me the bullets. And the crazy part was he didn't ask me for my ID. He didn't ask me for nothing. He just looked at me and said, no, I'm not selling you the bullets. Now, he was an older white guy, you know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking he being racist. So I started like, man, what's up? You know what I'm saying? So I take the money out of my pocket. I slam my money on the counter. I said, man, just give me the freaking bullets. You know what I'm saying? And so he was like, no, I'm not selling you anything. You need to leave my store. So I'm thinking he being racist. So I just started cursing him out. Oh, you white trash, this, blah, blah, blah. I'm cursing him out. And he told me, he said, he said, I'm sorry, hold on. They were trying to take me out. I'm just getting to the best part. Damn. 1 second. Man, they were trying to take me out. Oh, I'm getting to the good part. Hey. All right. So, going there, I'm arguing with this guy. He tells me, he said, hey, and like I said, I'm cursing him out. I'm thinking he's being racist. And he tells me, man, look, you got 3 seconds to leave my store, I'm calling the police. You know what I'm saying? And then he said, if you don't leave my store in the next 3 seconds, I'm calling the police. Now, of course, I didn't want to call the police because I knew I had dope on me. I had money in my pocket. And then also, I don't know what these guys had in the car. Like I said, this Mandrix guy, he always carried guns and stuff on him because he just the kind of guy. So I didn't know what they had in the car. So I definitely didn't want this guy, to call the police. So I leave. I pick my money up, pick my ID up. Because I even told him, I said, man, look, I got my ID. Like, no, he was just like, he wouldn't send me the bullets. So I pick my money up, go back to the car. So I got in the car and the dude was like, man was like, where the bullets at? I said, man, he wouldn't sell them to me. Like, man, you lying, bro. He said, man, you had us drive our way over here for nothing. I said, bro, I went in and asked the dude to send me the bullet. He wouldn't send me the bullets, bro. He said, nah, bro. He said, man, you got me messed up. You done wasted my whole day. I said, look here, bro. I had to cancel a date to come here and do this for y'all. I went in to get the bullets. Dude wouldn't send me the bullets. I said, I don't know what to tell you. I said, but you need to drop me back at the house before I get upset and we can have some problem. He's like, oh, no, man, ain't no need for all that. He said, man, I really need those bullets. I said, bro, I don't know what to tell you. I couldn't get them. You know what I'm saying? He says, I bet. So, he get in the car. And like I said, he was just, he was upset, man. It was just the amount of upset he was. It was weird. Like, why is he so upset? I couldn't get him. Maybe next time I'll get somebody else to do it or something like that, But he was just, he was really upset. So they dropped me back out the house. I didn't think nothing of it. I finished up my day. I went on a couple of more dates, finished up, started off with my baby mama, ended with my baby mama. You know what I'm saying? Had a great day, at least, back then, that was great. Now, that was just a horrible day. But finished up the day and didn't think nothing of it. So, next day, like I said, everything's still going hunky-dory. That Sunday morning, we selling those and everything. So now that the date that I missed the day before, the Saturday, I told her to come through Sunday night. So I told my boys, like, man, look, I'm going to need y'all to clear out tonight. Because this girl was a college girl. Like, she wasn't none of the thoughts of bust down we used to mess with. She was like, proper girl kind of thing. So I knew that if I had 1 million dudes in the house, she wasn't going to do nothing. I was trying to do something strange for a little piece of change. You know what I'm saying? So I told my boys, I said, man, y'all got to clear the house out. I got this girl coming over. I don't want nobody here. I said, between the hours, I think it was like 7 to 11 or something like that. Said, I want to be here by myself kind of thing. So my boy, I cleared the house out, got the house all nice and cleaned up, everybody cleaned out. So girl come over, we kicking in, we talking everything, and she was really cool, and it went really good, and I never get it around 9 o'clock, I was getting ready to make my move, and her phone rung, you know what I'm saying? So the phone rung, and she got talking, and she said, look, And she got off the phone and said, I said, I got to be honest with you. She said, I came over. She said, I can always tell kind of what you was trying to do. She said, I don't get down like that. She said, but I really have had a good time. She said, I really do like you. She said, but I just don't get down like that. She said, but I tell you what, she said, if you want to, we can sit up and go on a real date, 2 weeks from now. And, we'll see what happened kind of thing. So like, bet. And then she she told me that, no, I told my sister to call me about 9, to come up with some excuse for I can leave. She said, but I do got to leave. She said, but I did enjoy myself. So, we can set something up in 2 weeks from now. Matter of fact, while we was hanging out, we was watching TV, and it was some movie. I can't remember the movie, but it was supposed to come out in 2 weeks. And she's like, I want to see that. And I'm like, man, me too. So that was she said, no, we both want to see that movie. Why don't we go see that movie to come out in a couple of weeks? I like, bet. So she ended up leaving. So that was the first time ever that I had my house to myself. That was the very first time I had my house to myself. So I was like, man, what am I going to do with all this free time? I got my house to myself. Like, I ain't never had that happen. I ain't never been in the house by myself. So again, that's the Lord spoke, that my spirit spoke to me. I didn't hear it. And when I say spirit spoke to me, I want y'all to understand, I didn't hear a voice in anything. It was just like that inner dialogue kind of thing. But I remember my spirit spoke to me and it was like, hey, why don't you work on that song from yesterday? Yeah, because it was weird. Because I had never, at this point, like, I rapped and freestyle, but I had never actually wrote a song. You know what I'm saying? Like, and especially to write in like 30 minutes just like that. So I was like, yeah, this is a good idea. I said, before that, I got to give me some inspiration. So I remember I got some weed, and I wrote my weed down and rolled it up, rolled me up a fatty, and I started smoking. I smoked about half of it, and I put it out. And I went and sit at I had a table in my dining room, and it was a glass table, and that's really what we did most of our, like, whenever we got our bricks in for the weed, that's we break it down on the glass table. So, you know what I'm saying? So we didn't lose anything. So the very same spot that I normally would be sitting to break my dope down, I was now sitting there working on this song. So again, I don't know if any of you good upstanding people ever smoked weed before, but if you have, you'll know that it just kind of intensifies everything, make everything just like so much better, so to speak. And I never forget, I was, I'm high and I'm reading these lyrics that I wrote the day before, but it's like, man, it brought me on such conviction. My own words brought me under conviction, but I say my own word because it wasn't, that was the weird part about it. I wrote it, but I didn't. Like, I dictated it, but that did not come from me. The way the words was set up, the way the song was set up, the words, the stuff that it was saying, there was just no way of thinking I had ever had, like, ever. You know what I'm saying? How everything happens for a reason and God is no in it all kind of thing. So I'm reading these words that I wrote, and I'm just coming on this deep conviction. Like, my heart, like, I'm reading this word and my heart just started beating like hard, like do-doom, do-doom, do-doom. And you know what I'm saying? So I'm reading, and then next thing you know, tears start coming out my eyes. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm still reading, I'm just reading through the tears. And there was a line in the song where I was talking about selling drugs. There's a line I kind of mentioned selling drugs, and it was the way it was written. I wanted to kind of switch it, like with just keep the words but switching around. So I had a pen. I never forget. I went to change the line, and I had my pen in my hand. And before my pen touched the paper, it's just stuck. I was just stuck in midair. And at first I was like, man, this is some good weed. I'm so high, I'm stuck. You know what I'm saying? Because you most good stuff, sometimes you get stuck and you just kind of forget what you're doing. So that's what I thought at first, that I was just stuck, because I'm so high. But then I went to apply pressure to the pen, and it wasn't that I was stuck. I couldn't move. Like, my pen was literally, no matter how much force I put on this pen, like, it would not budge. Like, I'm talking about, like, I'm straining to move this pen, and it wouldn't budge. And then next thing you know, man, I just got these chills, like, all over my body, from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. Just like, I mean, it was intense. Like, have you ever had your hair stand up because you feel like somebody was behind you kind of thing? It was like that kind of feeling. And I just felt like somebody was behind me. And I'm like, what's going on? So I had these chills all on my body. I'm standing here with my pen, my hand stuck in midair, can't move. And I'm like, what is going on? You know what I'm saying? And then next thing you know, I'm crying. And it's like I had like a near-death experience. It's like my life flashed before my eyes, kind of thing. So my life flashed before my eyes. And I saw my life, and it was weird because it showed like all the bad parts for some reason, some odd reason. It just showed like all the bad parts, the molestation and the getting robbed, guns in my face. I saw all that, and I remember thinking like, okay, yeah, I lived through that, you know what I'm saying, and kind of thing. But then it's like it rewound it. It was almost like a tape kind of thing. And again, I didn't visualize it, but I can just see my life in my mind, so to speak. So it rewound it. and then it would play it again. But this time, it was showing all the bad times. It was showing all the bad spots. It was showing me waking up in random crack houses and not knowing where my mom was at. But it was also showing me how I was protected each time. That even though I was in this bad situation, I made it out because I wasn't there by myself. See, I had thought all this time that all them times I was in the valley, so to speak, where I was in no bad situation, I was there battling it by myself. And it's like God showed me that he had been there with me the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And then it just hit me like, gosh, God loved me this whole time. He's been taking care of me, and I've been the a-hole, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So next thing you know, once I realized that, like that chill just got even more intense, and I was like, I just started boo-hooing, like crying. And I'm saying my heart was beating, so I thought I was dying, to be honest. I had no clue what was going on. So I'm like, man, what is going on? And I remember thinking, like, what's going on? And again, that inner dialogue, the inner voice was just like, I didn't hear no actual voice. I can't tell you what God sounded like, but it was like, hey, you said you want God to show. It was like my spirit bringing on a conviction. It was like, you said you want God to show up and show you that he's real. He said, that sensation that you're feeling right now, that's the presence of God. Yeah, so if you got something that you need to say to God, you need to go ahead and get it off your chest. So I'm like, oh, really? God's here? I said, well, I got something to say to God. So I took the pen and I threw the pen down. And the first thing I said to God, and I'm not saying this to brag, but the first thing I said to God, I'm like, man, F you, God. I was like, man, F you, man. You seen my life. You seen what I've been through. You seen the molestation and the getting beat up. How many times I've been beat up and jumped and I almost lost my life and this and that. And I just had this, just like I'm pretty sure some of y'all, if you got to tell God off, you had this whole laundry list of complaints, of things that you've been through and discomfort that you had to experience since you've been here on this earth. And that's what I did. I'm going through, I'm whining and complaining about all this stuff I've been through. You know, God, you weren't there for this and you weren't there and you didn't love me and you allowed this to happen and blah this and blah that. And I'm just going through, complaining about all the stuff I've been through. And so this goes on for like a good 10, 15 minutes. And when I got done, I'm sitting there and I'm just sitting at the table and I got this song right in front of me and I'm crying and I'm huffing and puffing and I'm breathing hard. I'm like, yeah, I just told God off. And then again, my spirit was just like, again, I know what it was my spirit telling me. It's like, I'm saying like, all right, you upset. Like, you got every reason to be upset. I admit it, you had a rough life. You know what I'm saying? You got every reason to be upset. He said, I just want to ask you one thing. So I'm, again, I'm still arrogant. I'm like, what's that? What you got to ask me? And he's like, what have you ever done for me? And when that question came to me, it's like stopped me in my track and it just hit me like a blow to the chest. I'm like, what do you mean, kind of thing? Like, it's simple. He said, what are you complaining all this stuff that I've never done for you? He said, what have you done for me? He said, let me ask you something. He said, you're supposed to be a Christian. Now, have you ever told anybody about me? And then I thought about like, no, I haven't. He said, exactly. He said, you out here, working, 2 jobs, going to school full time, selling dope. You doing all this stuff. He said, but why are you doing it? He said, are you doing it to honor and glorify me? Or are you doing it to make yourself look big in the eyes of these young children that you're trying to impress? And I thought about I was really trying to impress these kids. He said, let me ask you something. He said, have you ever asked me? He said, you working all this stuff, killing yourself, sleeping 2-3 hours a week. He said, have you ever asked me to provide anything for you? He said, when is the last time you asked me to give you anything? And when I really thought, and y'all think about that, how many times do you actually get on your knees and ask God, provide something for me? And at that time, I never really just got on my knees like, God, I'm putting this in your hand. Never really done. I always thought that if I worked hard enough and long enough, I can get it myself. I never really relied on God for anything. And I came to the realization, he's like, exactly. He said, he said, in your complaint, you said you felt like you was cursed because you got 3 steps ahead and got pushed 5 steps back. He said, the reason why you feel like you cursed is because you are cursed, because you're living for yourself. He said, you're not living for me. He said, I brought you out of North Memphis. I kept you safe and protected in those drug houses. I kept you safe and protected in those gang-infested areas, those drug dealer-infested areas, those killer-infested areas. I kept you safe and protected and brought you out of that so you can do a work for me, and yet you continue to do a work for yourself. You know I've been calling you this whole time, but you've been running from me. He said, but you know what? You got one more opportunity. He said, this is my last time I'm going to call you. He said, you got one more opportunity. He said, I tell you what, you can keep doing what you're doing and you'll be dead by tomorrow, or you can start serving me and I can use you to bring others to me. So I'm like, oh, whoa. What do you mean dead by tomorrow? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't just like slide past like you didn't just say that. Like, what do you mean? He said, how when you went to get those bullets yesterday, the day before, and you couldn't buy those bullets? I like, yeah. He said, the reason why you couldn't buy those bullets, he said, because those guys were actually planning on robbing you and killing you. They didn't have any bullets for their gun, and they needed the bullets so they can subdue you, because they knew they weren't going to be able to do it with just their hand, because I was bigger than all of them. You know what I'm saying? He said, so they wanted to get the bullets. He said, but now they have the bullets, and even though they told you they're going to rob some white people Monday, they actually plan on coming and robbing you Monday night. He said, so if you don't make the right decision tonight, you're not going to make it through tomorrow night. So, of course, I'm sitting here telling y'all this story, and this is my 19th anniversary, so y'all know the decision that was made, you know what I'm saying? But it just finally came to my life. But God finally revealed, at that very moment, I realized that God was real. You know, and I came to the realization that not only was he real, he's loved me this whole time. And I was going through what I was going through, not because he didn't love me. I was going through what I was going through because I didn't love him. You know what I'm saying? I was the a-hole in the situation. I was mad at God, but I was the one doing it wrong. I was the one that turned my back on him. Excuse me. I was the one that stopped going to church when I got to college. You see what I'm saying? I'm the one that stopped reading my Bible. I'm the one that turned my back on him. He never left me. And that's what he showed me when he flashed my life before my eyes. He never left me. I left him, and he allowed me to do it because I have free will. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, he's like, I can still use you. You got a choice. He said, you make your choice right now. He said, you can keep doing what you're doing and you'll be dead by tomorrow, or you can start serving me and I can use you to bring others to me. He said, there's a lot of people out there in this world that is going through the same things you're going through. They're either going through it or have been through it. He said, and I need you. He said, I want you to, he said, your job, he said, your goal, my goal for you is to gather my lost sheep. That's why my ministry called the Lost Sheep Ministry. He said, lost sheep. He said, but the thing is that the reason why you went through what you went through, he said, because I need you to be authentic. He said, the people you're going to are going to be hurting. They're going to be people that's been beat down by this world. They're going to be the people that's seen the ugliness of this world. He said, if you've never lived in that darkness, if you've never lived in that ugliness, there's no way you're going to be able to relate to them. He said, but because you have walked in that darkness, because you have lived in that ugliness, you'll be able to use your testimony to bring all kind of people to me. He said, and that's why I had to put you through what I want to put you through, because I needed you to be authentic. Because what they say in the streets, y'all, real recognize real. And then he said, I need you to be real. He said, because if you're not real, you're not going to be able to gather in the ones that I'm sending you out to gather. He said, so that's why he said, so you can choose from this moment to serve me or choose to serve yourself. But I'm going to let you know, you make the wrong decision, you're not going to make it through tomorrow night. So, of course, I'm just like everybody else, you know what I'm saying? It was a lot of other stuff that was said because I'm already over my time. I thought I was going to keep it short, but I guess not. When I get to tell the story, man, it always takes over me, you know what I'm saying? But, so, you know what I'm saying? So, a couple other things, I'm just like everybody else. I pulled a Gideon. I'm like, all right, well, God, if I really, talk to you, if you really just showed up in my life, you know what I'm saying? I need you to do this, 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 and this. And I just gave him a list of things I wanted him to do that proved that I had talked to God, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? That the conversation with God ended. So now I'm sitting there and I'm spooked. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like shook. Like, I mean, I literally felt like I had saw a ghost because I had just, for the first time in my life, felt the presence of God. And for the first time in my life, I realized that God was real. And in the fear of thinking and realizing that God was real is that, oh crap, look at how I've been living my life for these last 6 years. You know what I'm saying? Look how I've been living my life up, because at that point I was 24. So I realistically, look how I've been living my life for these 24 years. Like, I've done some terrible things. I've led some people probably in situations that took them away from God. And now I know God is real. I got an answer for that. I was spooked. You know what I'm saying? So what I said from that night when I got to talk to God, the last thing I said, I now realize that I've let everything else get in front of you. So I said, from this moment on, I'm not going to let anything come before you. So I said this while I'm talking to God. So I'm sitting at my table and I got my eyes closed. Like I said, I'm just having this inner dialogue with my spirit, with God, whatever you want to call it, to make you comfortable, help you sleep at night. But I'm talking with God. Now, I forgot to mention, so while I'm in the middle of this conversation with God, telling him that I'm not going to let anything else come before him, my brother comes back in and he says, man, your phone been ringing. He just kind of whispered because I was like, my eyes closed, and I guess he can tell I was praying. But it was weird. He's just like, hey, your baby mama called. And he just set the phone on the table. So the whole time I'm sitting there praying, talking to God, this phone is going off. But I think it was God testing me, because I had just told God, like, hey, I'm not going to let nothing come in between. You know what I'm saying? Between me serving you or talking to you, I'm not going to let nothing come between. So, of course, in the back of my mind, like, man, maybe when the kids got hurt and it's an emergency. Because, she was just blowing my phone up. I said, no, I'm not going to answer. So I finished up this conversation with God. You know what I'm saying? And when I finally got around to calling her back, she was just calling because her brother was leaving. He wanted to say goodbye. Blowing my phone up for that. So I'm glad I didn't answer the phone at the time. But again, like I said, I finished up the conversation. I asked God to do some more things. But now I'm sitting here stuck. You know what I'm saying? I'm still here shook. So I'm sitting here shook. By this time, my boys come back. My brother and my boys come back. And I'm just sitting at the table and I'm just like wide-eyed. I'm just like I had just saw a ghost. And my brother was like, man, you all right? I said, no. They said, what's wrong? I said, man, I think I just talked to God. So they believe, and right before, and I will say this, I forgot to mention this too. I had got to a point so much like with the drugs, when you do enough drugs, you get to a point where they don't get you high no more. They don't give you the same high that you used to. So that's how you end up elevating. That's how folks end up on meth and crack and all the other hard stuff because the soft stuff started working. So I had started, I wasn't bad on it, but I did start smoking heavy Chevys. And for somebody that said they would never touch cocaine, that was pretty bad. And the heavy Chevy is weed with cocaine sprinkled on top of it. And right before my brother and them left, they had rolled one and they left it there to dry while it was gone. So when I said that, I just talked to God. I'm like, man, did you hit that heavy already? No, just joking. I'm like, no, I'm dead serious. I said, matter of fact, man, I said, what I want y'all to do, I told him, I said, grab a box of cigars, because I bought my cigars by the box, because that's how much we smoke. And I gave him an ounce of weed. I said, man, I want y'all to sit down and roll all this. We need to have a talk. And then at that time, they're like, all right, man, whatever. So when I gave them the weed and the cigars, I got up and I went to my room and I knocked on the door. I locked my door and I got on my knees. And that's the first time that I can remember in my life that I really wholeheartedly, humbly went to God. And I just started apologizing. I was just like, man, I'm sorry, God, I'm sorry. And anything that I can think of to apologize for, I did. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry for doing this. I'm sorry for doing that. I'm sorry. Like, I was just kept on saying I'm sorry. Anything I think of that I had been doing, I was apologizing for. So this goes on for 30 minutes to an hour. So finally, I heard a knock on my door. And once again, my brother like, hey, man, we done. What's up? I said, man, y'all go up there and sit down, have a seat. I'll be up there in a minute. So when I got up, I went to the kitchen, grabbed a garbage bag, and I went back in my room to my closet, and I just cleared my closet out. All the drugs, everything I had in my closet, I just cleared the closet out, put in this garbage bag, tied a knot in it. You know what I'm saying? My boy didn't know what was in it, but I knew what was in it. Everything I had drug-related was in this bag, and I just tied a knot in it. I had a big old garbage bag, you know what I'm saying, full of drugs, and I tied a knot in, and I went up front. So my boy like, what's up? And I said, man, y'all sit down. I kind of put them in a semicircle, and I just had it kind of like that because they were sitting around this floor, and I remember standing in the middle of them, like it was nobody behind me, but I had everybody in front of me, my whole crew in front of me. And I said, man, y'all gonna blaze up. I said, I'm not going to smoke with y'all. I just want y'all to listen while y'all smoke. And they're like, all right, whatever. Again, they had no clue what's going on. So they started smoking, man. And that night, it was about 11:30. I started talking, and next thing you know, man, everything that I had experienced in my life that was dealing with God started pouring out of me. Like all the times that my grandma made me go to church, you know what I'm saying? All the Bible reading that I had done. Because that was when I first read the Bible, it was reading, when I first used to read the Bible, I would read to my grandma when she went blind because she couldn't read it no more. So whenever she wanted to get some Bible reading in, she would have me read it to her. I didn't understand what I was saying, but that just started pouring out of me, man. So next thing you know, I'm quoting the Bible, I'm saying this, and I'm telling these guys that, man, I just talked to God. Now, I'm a little bit more calm now, but then I was so excited. I was like, hey, man, and then God said this, and then God said this, and then I was just like going off, you know what I'm saying? And I preached it, like I set them down, and I basically preached to them. I mean, y'all can tell I'm long-winded, but not as long as I was that night. I started talking to them about 11:30 that night, and I talked to them from 11:30 that night to about 7 o'clock that morning. You know what I'm saying? Almost 8 hours straight. And I'm just telling them all these things that God just revealed to me and all these Bible verses and all that stuff and everything. And I'm just quoting the Bible. And, so when I finished, my boys, because they was like, man, what the heck is going on? And it was the weird thing, too. The phone, I don't know, my brother put on silent, but the entire time I was talking, my phone never did ring. It never did ring. You know what I'm saying? So all this is going on. And I'm telling them all this. And then finally, my brother, like, man, my boy was like, man, you serious about this? And I'm like, I'm dead serious. I said, because I said, man, I'm done with selling drugs. I'm giving my life to God. And they like, what? Like, are you serious? Like, I'm dead serious. And like, man, are you BS? And I said, I'm going to tell y'all how serious I am. So I had a guy that his name was, we call him O. You know what I'm saying? He's from Arkansas. I'll never forget, he was a college student as well. And just about 3-4 weeks before this happened, he had asked me to show him the game, to give him the game, show him how to get on kind of thing. And I had promised I was doing, so I was kind of grooming him to kind of be my second in command. And he was like, well, his goal was when the semester ended, he was like, I'm dropping out of school, man. I'm gonna go back home to Arkansas, and I'm gonna set up my own thing. So I wanted you to, you know what I'm saying, show me the business kind of thing. So that's what I was doing. So I told him, his name was, I said, come here, man. He said, what's up? So I'll never forget, I stood him in front of everybody. I said, I know I told you I would show you the drug game. I said, but I can't do that no more. I said, but I will give you a advantage. I'll help you get ahead. I said, here you go. You can have this. And he said, what's that? And I said, man, this is all the drugs I got. I said, this is everything. I said, I just read up yesterday. So this is basically everything I had, all my money I got, everything's tied up in these drugs. I said, but here you go. You can have it. He said, man, what's that? I said, man, I'm telling you. I said, man, you know what I'm saying, a couple of pounds of weed. It was like a few pounds a week. By this time, I had diversified, so I had a couple of pounds of weed, maybe a pound or so of weed, some pills, mushrooms, like everything. Like I said, everything except for coke. You know what I'm saying? So I said, here you go. You can have this. So at first, he kind of took back, thought I was kind of testing kind of thing. He said, nah, bro, I don't know what you on, man. But I said, man, you can have it. He's like, you serious? I said, yes, bro. He said, why? I said, because I just promised God I'll never sell this stuff again. I said, so you can have it. I said, honestly, I said, you can give it away, you can sell it. I said, you can shove it up. Yeah, that's for all I care. I said, but don't bring me one single dime from it, because I promised God I'll never do this again. And then I handed that sack out to him again. And when I put it out there the second time, he grabbed it. And when he grabbed it, y'all, the verse of the Bible where it talks things over in Philippians, where he talks about the peace of God that passes all understanding, I felt that. Like I literally, when he grabbed that bag and I let it go, I literally felt like the weight of the world had just lifted off my shoulders. I literally felt like I was gonna float away. Like, I mean, I can't even explain the feeling that I felt, but I mean, just nothing but utter peace just came over me, man. And when I did that, it's like my boys' eyes opened up. They were like, man, he's serious. And they're like, man, how can we know God like that? I said, let me tell you. So after that happened, man, for 3 days straight, y'all, I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't drink water for 3 days straight. I preached for 3 days straight. Matter of fact, the only reason I stopped preaching on the 4th day is because I had talked so long and so much that I lost my voice. You know what I'm saying? Like I literally was like trying to whisper to people, but everybody I came across for those next 3 days, I was just telling them about this experience I just had with God for 3 days straight. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm going to go back to what happened Monday night, then I'm going to end it there because I'm way over my time. But I'm telling you what God did to show me that it was real and why I finally dedicated myself to the Lord. You know what I'm saying? So now this happened, like I said, it started Friday the 13th, Saturday to the 14th when I went to get the bullets and for the guys and I wrote the song. The 15th is when I actually got the call. And now this is Monday the 16th. So Monday the 16th, so like I said, I gave my George to my boy. So then I got an idea. I said, I tell you what, man, look, you ain't going to lose nothing off of this. I said, but this is what I want you to do. I said, I'm giving you the drugs. I'm not taking them back. I said, but hang out in my apartment today. And whenever any of my customers call or come by, ask them what they want and tell them they can have it free if they listen to me preach. I said, that way, you know what I'm saying, you can either make some money or you can get your clientele built up and you'll have everybody a number you can meet all my customers. I'm just going to pass them over to you. So he's like, bet. So that's what he did. He hung out in my apartment that day. And every time one of my customers come by, you know what I'm saying, he's like, hey, you can get this free, listen to John preach. And of course, they're like, John preach, all right, whatever. So that whole day, man, every time one of my customers came by, I was giving, and I wasn't really preaching because I didn't know enough of the word just then, but I was basically sharing my testimony, what I just told, this stuff that I just told y'all. And of course, not this long extended version, but I was just telling them what God had done and what happened to me the night before. And everybody was just amazed. They were like, and like I said, people can tell it's one thing for you to say, oh, I'm living with God now, like that. They can tell that I was not the same person I was just the day before. Like it was that much of a difference from where I was, like the conversation that we was having when if they would have came the day before versus the conversation we were having that day. Like people can tell like this was serious. You know what I'm saying? So long story short, that whole day, that's what happened. So I preached that whole day. So now fast forward, it's about 10:30 that night. It's about 10:30 at night. Business kind of calmed down, and it's just me and my boys. And I'm still just talking. I'm just, man, telling all this thing that God had done from us. So at this point, like the way my apartment was, I had the front door, and then it was like a long hallway, and then my brother's room was on the right side of the hallway, and then my room was at the very end. So we was all the lights in the house was off, and we was all in my room. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, my boys was kind of sitting around my bed, and like I said, I tried to go to sleep, I couldn't. It was just the spirit was on me so strong that I just couldn't do it. So I'm just preaching, I'm just talking, I'm just telling everybody what happened. You know what I'm saying? And I'll never forget, I remember hearing my door open. And I heard my front door open. And I remember thinking, nobody had called to come by. I'm not expecting nobody. Who in the heck could that be? I said, well, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Whoever it is, I'll see when they get here. And it was weird because the thing was, like, up until that day, I always make sure my door was locked. You know what I'm saying? Even these days, I make sure my door is locked. I never leave my door unlocked. But that day, I left it unlocked because anybody that came in my house, they was going to hear my testimony that day. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, well, whoever it is, I see them when they get there. So when they get here, so I just kept on preaching. I'm hearing the footsteps. Kept on preaching. So next thing you know, I heard the footsteps right outside my room door. And when I heard the footsteps outside my room door, I looked up. It was two dudes in ski masks. And one of them had a 12-gauge shotgun, and the other one had a 22 pistol. And both of them aimed them right at me. And they looked at me with the guns aimed at me, and they like, lay it down, nigga. And I looked at them. So I looked at them. I said, nigga, I already know who y'all is. Y'all just sit down somewhere. And I just went back to preaching like they weren't even standing there. So I'm just preaching. So we got these. I'm sitting here preaching, and we got two dudes standing there, guns drawn on me. And the crazy part was nobody moved. And I think that what messed them up. Because, you expect you walk into a room with guns, everybody start freaking out or whatever. It's like nobody didn't even pay attention to these dudes. Like, these dudes were standing there, but they wouldn't. Because the Spirit of God was on me so strong. And the word that I was preaching was so real to these dudes. Like, they didn't even care that those dudes were standing there with guns. So the guys with the gun, they stand there looking at each other like, man, what the hell is going on? Like, why is nobody paying attention to us kind of thing? So eventually, after a few seconds, it got a little awkward. So they were like, man, we were just playing. So they took the ski mask off, and guess who it was? It was the dude Mandrikas and his boy Yoshan. Yoshan had the 12-gauge, and Mandrikas had the 22, and he just stuck it in the back of his pants. So then they just sat down on the bed, and they were just looking at each other like, man, what the hell is going on kind of thing. So I just kept on preaching like it wasn't nothing. So then I went for another few minutes and let everything kind of calm down, got them kind of comfortable. They was just like, okay. You know what I'm saying? So then I told my boys, hey, y'all, I need to holler at man real quick. I said, y'all go up front. You know what I'm saying? I need to holler at man. So I told man, I said, hey, man, come smoke with me. So I told him, I said, let's go in my brother's room because I want us to be by ourselves. So that's when I put another one of my tests because I knew, because when he sat down on the bed, he still had the 22 pistol in the back of his pants. So I knew he had the pistol. I knew he was coming to rob me and kill me. So I told God, I said, man, let's go in there. So I told God, I said, all right, I'm finna confront him about coming to rob me tonight. I said, I'm not going to take my gun in, and I'm going to let him take his gun in, and I'm going to confront him for it. I was like, so if you really want me to do this work you said you got for me to do, then I'm putting my faith completely in you to keep me safe and protected, and only if you protect me, then I'm going to walk out of that room. You know what I'm saying? I just put it in God's hands. So we went in the room, and I even locked the door behind me, you know what I'm saying, to make sure nobody can come in and intervene. So we sat on the bed, and of course, he still, have no clue what's going on. So I grabbed one of the blunts that they had rolled earlier because we had a few left over. And I gave it to him, I lit it, and I said, man, just smoke with me for a minute. You know what I'm saying? So, we puff past, but when I was hitting it, I wasn't actually inhaling. I was just, hitting it and then blowing it out. So then, you know what I'm saying, we did that for a couple of times. When it got about halfway done, as I hit it one more time, when I passed it to him, I looked him in his eyes. I said, oh, yeah, by the way, bro, I forgive you. And he said, for what? I said, man, I forgive you. He said, for what? I said, man, I know when you came through that door, y'all were planning on robbing me and killing me, but don't worry about it, I forgive you for it. He said, oh, no, bro, man, we just playing, you know what I'm saying? We just thought it'd be fun. I said, bro, who comes to somebody's house at 11 o'clock at night with ski masks and guns on playing? I said, man, I got a pistol. Like, what if I would have shot you? I said, people don't play like that. I know when you came in, you was intending on robbing me and killing me, bro, but don't worry about it, I forgive you. He said, no, man, you got me fucked up. So he jumped up. You know what I'm saying? So we both jumped up, you know what I'm saying? He got jumped up, and I jumped up. And what I did, by this time, we started getting a little loud. We weren't tussling or nothing, but, it was getting a little loud. I knew, like I said, I didn't want my boys to hear. I just wanted God to handle. I wanted to see what God was going to do. So what I did, when I jumped up, I stood in front of the door with my back to the door so nobody can come in. You know what I'm saying? And so I just stood with my back to the door so nobody can come in. And he stood right in front of me. So now we looking at each other eye to eye. And he got his fist up like he want to punch me. So he just standing there like this. And we almost nose to nose. And he's just breathing hard. And he got this look on his face like he just want to punch me, but he couldn't. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, like I said, I wasn't going to protect myself. So I'm standing there and I just got my arms out. And I said, bro, you got to do what you got to do. I said, because I'm not going to even do nothing to defend myself. You know what I'm saying? So I'm standing there like my arms out like this. And he right in my face with his hand like this, like he ready to punch. And we just standing there staring each other in the eye. You know what I'm saying? So he just got this look like he wanted to do it, but he couldn't. And I never forget, I remember thinking to myself, like, man, because I had already braced from impact. So I was like, man, this nigga gonna hit me or what? And right when I said that, I saw a single tear drop come down this dude's nose. Like a single tear drop that came down this dude's nose, and he just dropped his arms. He just started crying like a baby. You know what I'm saying? And he threw his arms around my shoulder and he just started crying. And he just started saying, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said, you sorry for what? He said, man, you know what I'm saying? I was coming to rob you, bro, but I was going to kill you. I said, man, bro, I'm from North Memphis. I was like, you think this is the first time I had a gun on my face? I was like, what was you going to do if I didn't give you what you asked for? He said, man, I was going to do what I had to do. I said, exactly. I said, up until last night, man, I was willing to die for this. And he said, and I said, but now after last night, I'm willing to die for something else. He said, what's that is? I said, man, God. And he looked at me like he was perplexed for a second. He said, man, how can I know God like this? I said, let me tell you, bro. And we sat down on my brother's bed, and I just started telling him my testimony, telling him all the stuff that had happened. And I was telling him how God had already showed me that he was coming to do what he was doing. And I never forget, we got through. He said, man, he said, I don't know how else to explain it, but you had to have talked to God. There was no way you would have known what I was planning on doing. I said, I said, that's why we couldn't get those bullets. I knew you were gonna rob me. When we were going to get the bullets the other day. He said, yeah, because I wasn't trying to come back to your house because I knew all your folks were here and your gun was going to be here. I said, exactly. I said, but God had something else for me, bro. And from now on, my life is healed. And he said, man, he said, I don't know why. And first thing he said, man, I don't know why I'm telling you this, bro. He said, but I love you, man. And he said, from now on, if you got any problem, anybody, let me know. He said, I want to be like your right-hand man. And I said, bet. And we hugged each other. And that was the first time I ever in my life had a man that wasn't in my family, that wasn't a part of my family, tell me they loved me. So we hugged each other, and then he opened the door and we walked out. So his boy was still sitting there on the bed with the 12 gauge. Well, he was sitting on the bed, and he said, hey, yo, Sean, let's roll. And he's like, man, what's going on? He said, man, I'll tell you when we get in the car. So your Sean, when they came into the room, they sat down. Your Sean had kind of cocked the 12 gauge up against the wall, you know what I'm saying, the door frame. So he grabbed the 12 gauge, and they just walked out. So my boy was like, man, what was that all about? I said, all them niggas couldn't rob us, but we straight. And I just went back to preaching like it wasn't, you know what I'm saying, like it wasn't nothing. So by this time, it's right at 12 o'clock. So I said, bro, I told my boys, hey, y'all go up front. I got something I need to do. I need to holler at God real quick. So like I said, it was Monday night, February 16th at that time. So right at exactly 12 o'clock p.m., February 17th at 12 o'clock p.m., I got on my knees and I told God, I said, look, God, I apologize for doubting you. I apologize for all these years I've lived outside of your will. And I said, from this, I said, I apologize for even making you prove yourself after you showed up and showed me that you was real. I said, so I tell you what, from this moment on, I said, you ain't got to do nothing else. Ignore all the other bull crap I told you to do, to prove yourself to me. I said, you ain't got to do nothing else. And I apologize for even trying to make you prove yourself to me. I said, from this moment forward, my life is yours. Wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to do, my life is yours. You know what I'm saying? And I gave my life to God February 17, 2004 at 12 o'clock. I gave my life to God. You know what I'm saying? And ever since then, man, I've been doing this, and that's why I'm here telling y'all this story today. And of course, I'm way past my time. I was hoping to be done like an hour ago, but it's just like, like I said, it's so hard for me to cut stuff out because it all added up and it all boils down to God's will, man. And that's what the biggest takeaway, I guess, from this story is, first of all, God is real. You know, so a lot of people ask me like, how, because like I said, I had everything that the world say you should have to be happy. I had it all and I still wasn't happy. You know what I'm saying? So people ask me a lot of times. I remember this one truck driver asked me that I led to the Lord. He said, man, how do you go from having all the money, cars, clothes, and all these women and all this stuff and to going to basically being broke? Because I gave up all my drugs. So I was broke. You know what I'm saying? I'm still struggling to come back from that, you know what I'm saying, from debt that I cured because I gave up everything. But he's like, how do you go from that to serving God just like that? He said, how do you do that? He said, most people take time, them going through this. How do you do that? I said, it was two reasons why I was able to do it and been sticking with it. I said, one, that night when I had the experience, I knew without a doubt, 200% that God was real. And I know that if God is real, then heaven is real. And that's where I want to go. And that's where I want everybody I know to go. I said, but at the same time, if God is real and heaven is real, then that means the devil is real and hell is real. And I want all my people to go to heaven, and I don't want anybody to go to hell, not even my worst enemies. I said, and I knew for a fact, without a doubt, that God was real that night. So now, because we all had that little in the back of, what if God ain't really real? You know what I'm saying? What if I'm down here being good and missing out on the party and then dying is nothing? all that doubt went out the window that night. You know what I'm saying? I said, I knew without a doubt that God was real. You know what I'm saying? I want to serve the Lord and do everything I can to serve the Lord. And I said, you can't never really make up for the bad you've done, but at least live the rest of the time you have doing some good. I said, so that was one reason. I said, and the second reason is, I said, because I told y'all earlier, when I had the experience when I was sitting there working on the song, I got these chills all over my body. Well, guess what? You know what I'm saying? The Bible says, wherever there's two or more gathered in his presence, gathered in my name, I'm there in the presence. And ever since that night, that them chills came on my body, from now, ever since that night, that was 19 years ago, and still to this day. Matter of fact, it didn't happen since I've been talking to y'all tonight, sharing the story tonight. Every single time I tell this story, or I'm preaching, or I'm teaching somebody something about God, I get chills all over my body. Every single time, and it only happens when I'm talking about God. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I just be sitting at work thinking about God. Like I do some sample, I be running a sample or something, and I just get in this deep thought, thinking about something good that God done for me, and I get this chill. Sometimes it just goes down my back. Sometimes it just goes up my arms. Sometimes it just goes in my head. Every once in a while, it'll feel like somebody's just kind of rubbing my head, like them chills will just be going back and forth across my head like that. And it only happens when I talk about God. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why, because that's the gift that God gave me. Like I said, I didn't see a light. You know, I know I've been saying the voice told me, but I didn't actually hear a voice. It was just kind of an inner dialogue in my heart talking out to me, the spirit in my heart talking out to me. I never heard a voice, never saw a light. But every single time I'm preaching, I'm having a deep conversation about God, or I'm doing something to build the kingdom of God, I get chills all over my body. And it's been 19 years, and it still happens to this day. So as God gave me that gift, the gift that he gave me was to feel his presence so I can know that he's always there with me. Because at one point I thought he had abandoned me and I was all on my own, but he showed me that he never was. And ever since that day, I have proof that he never is. So the biggest takeaway from this, I would say, for I want y'all to take away from this, first thing, God is real. You know what I'm saying? That God is real. I know, there's a lot of other thoughts out there. You got the atheists, you got people that believe in evolution and all that. I'm telling you, God is real. And God is real, and we're going to have to stand before him someday. And you do not want to stand before him and not know him. So God is real. And because God is real, everything that happens to you is in his will. I don't care how good it is. I don't care how bad it is. It's all according to the will of God. And it's really up to you to make the choice how you're going to take it. You can take those bad things and let it strengthen you and make you to a better person, or you can take those bad things and make you weaker and you use it to turn your back on God. And that's what I did for so long. And I look at my life and how much bad things and how much chaos and calamity came into my life because I did that. I did the latter. I let it make me weak. But then when God came and called me, it made me strong. And now from this day forth, I live my life for the Lord. And that's why if I ever gave y'all a Bible or signed anything for y'all know I always sign in my name. And then I put the verse Romans 8:28. Because that verse says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord, to them who are called according to his purpose. In other words, everything that happens to you, good, bad, or ugly, it's all part of God's will, and it's all to make you into the man you are, or the man or the woman you are today. You know what I'm saying? You got to understand that. I don't care what you're going through. I don't care where you are. I don't care how good or bad or ugly. Because the thing is, we always want to take the good from God. We love the good. And we love the okay. But we get upset with God when the bad comes around. We get upset with God when the ugly come around. And if the ugly or the bad make you turn your back on God, then guess what? You don't really have a love for God. And if you don't have a true love for God, then you're never going to be able to grow, and you're never going to be able to seriously, sufficiently live under his grace. You know what I'm saying? You got to love God. You know, I did a sermon a while back. You got to love God the same way in the valley that you do when you're on the mountaintop. And if you can't do that, then you don't really love God. You're just trying to use God. And God is not used, and God is not mocked. So that's the main things I would say. If you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, I know I'm not talking about salvation, but a lot of people are not saved because they don't really believe in God. If you watch this video and you're not saved, I'm telling you, God is real. You're going to have to stand before him one day, and you definitely don't want to walk through that door called death, and you've never asked Jesus Christ to be your Savior. You know what I'm saying? And no matter what you're going through, good, bad, or ugly, God is there with you in the midst. And if you just continue to put your faith in him, don't let that make you turn your back on him. He will see you through. So I'm sorry, y'all. I said I was going to do good, but y'all see I didn't. But like I said, it's just this story. So I'm so passionate about the story, you know what I'm saying? Because I know a lot of people that is either going through what I went through, or have been through what I went through. And that's what God showed me with my life. That's why I said, that's why I went through that. He's like, you're not the only man that's been, raped before. You're not the only person that lived with parents as drug addicts. You're not the only one that's been jumped by gangs, and you're not the only one that had guns put in face. You're not the only one. It's a lot of hurting people, just like you was hurting. There's a lot of other hurting people in this world, and I want you to go and bring them all to me. And that's why I went through what I went through, because real recognize real. So that's the origin story of the Lost Sheep Ministry. And like I said, so that night, February 17th, 2004, which is coming up Friday, that night, almost 19 years ago, I gave my life to God, and I've been doing it ever since. You got to be careful, because I told God, wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to do, I do it. And I said that, and now I'm in freaking Waverly, Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be careful when you tell God that, because he will send you somewhere that you never imagined being. But if you go, you follow his will, I guarantee you it's work out. And because I've been following his will, that's how I've been able to have this Lost Sheep Ministry. And that's why I've been living this life, doing the things that I'm doing, serving of God to this day. So thank y'all for joining me tonight. I will go ahead and do the end of the announcements. We're way over. And I appreciate you the ones that hung in there with me for the whole story. And like I said, I know it's a little long, but you ain't gotta, if you go back and watch it, you ain't gotta watch the whole thing, break it up in parts. But it's just, this is such an important story, because like I said, this was such a pivotal moment in my life. And because ever since I made that day, one of the things I did right after I did that, I proposed to my wife, told her everything I had been doing. That's a whole nother story. Y'all have to ask me about this someday. But I basically told her everything I had been doing, and I asked her to marry me. She said yes. And this April coming up, April the 9th, we've been married 19 years. So I've been serving God for 19 years, and I've been married the entire time. You know what I'm saying? I got 7 kids total all together that I've been able to be in their life the entire time. I'm working for $1 billion corporation as the head chemist, the son of 2 crackheads from Memphis, and I'm working as one of the head chemists in my plant for $1 billion corporation. All of my life is winning, and I can go on some more testimonies, but I'm just saying, all my life, the person that I became and everything I've been able to do, everything I've been able to accomplish, I've only been able to do it because I finally gave in to God's will. And instead of letting God's will happen, let what happened according to God's will make me upset and make me weaker, I used it to make me stronger. And now I try to use the same thing that made me stronger, use these words and this testimony to make you others stronger that's maybe going through the same thing. So I love you all. That's why I shared the story. I pray it helps some of y'all. Some of y'all know y'all heard this before, and some of y'all haven't. And some of y'all haven't heard it, have heard bits and pieces, but not in this detail. So either way it go, I pray it touched your heart. And if you're going through some things, I'll let you know right now, it's all a part of God's will. Just don't lose faith. He will be there with you in the midst. So with that being said, if there's anything in particular you would like me to talk about, or any stories, something I haven't covered already in the lessons I've been doing, make sure you inbox me and let me know. Now, God's will, next week I'll be back Monday night at 7 o'clock. What I'll be doing, that's another thing. So this is my time of year. So what I always do, I start with my testimony. Then next week I'm gonna bring the video on salvation, how you know for sure you're going to heaven. I always like to share the gospel with you guys. And the reason why I do this once a year, because over the year I come across people, I meet new people that maybe didn't see my testimony the year before, or maybe not heard me present the gospel the year before. So I like to do it once a year to make sure that the new people that have never heard it get an opportunity to hear it, and hope they get to come to the Lord as well. So God's willing, next Monday, 7 o'clock, you'll be back here, and I will be go over the plan of salvation and tell you what you need to know, so you can ask the Lord to save your soul, and you'll be able to get to heaven when you go through that door called death. So that's the game plan for next week. Next week, God's willing, I'll be here. And then the following week after that, I got a sermon. If you're in the New Johnsonville area, Waverly area, this Sunday night coming up, I will be preaching 6:30 at River Lake Baptist Church. I will present a sermon at the church there at River Lake Baptist. So if you're in the area, come out and check me out. And if you don't get the opportunity to do it, I will present it on here in the next couple of weeks as well. Keep sharing the videos, tell other people about the video, especially this one. I remember when I did this the very first time, some people shared and they ended up going down to Houston, and I ended up making friends with a guy in Houston because somebody shared my video that lived down in Texas. So keep sharing the videos, telling other people about the videos, so this story can get out. Because like I said, I know there's a lot of people going through the same thing that I'm going through, and maybe having that same resentment toward God because of what happened to them. And I pray they can hear this story and this video touch their heart and get them to want to get their heart to the Lord as I did. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, you're not 100% sure about salvation. You're not sure that if you go to that door called death, you're going to get to see the Lord on the other side. Please, please, please reach out to me and let me know. And I will schedule some time in my schedule, put some time in my schedule to go over the gospel with you, because that is the most important decision that you ever make in your life. And as always, if you got any spiritual counseling you need, any questions about the Bible, things of that nature, reach out to me and let me know, and I will set up some time to go over there with you as well, and see if I can share some of the wisdom the Lord has given me and help you get the answer you need so you can have a close relationship with God. And as always, this is my YouTube page. If you want to catch my old sermons and things of that nature, you go to this page, put in God's Servant / Lost Sheep Ministries. It'll take you to my channel. You subscribe to the channel, and you can always be updated. All my videos are there, except for this one, of course, and I'll put this one there next Sunday, God's willing. So that being said, y'all, thank y'all. I went way over, man. I really was hoping at least keep it under 2 hours, but again, it's just I can't help it. This is the story of my life. Really, the most important day in my life, other than me being born. The most important day of my life, and that's why I wanted to share it with y'all and let y'all know what led up to me becoming the man I am today and the origin story of the Lost Sheep Ministry, basically. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pray and get out of here, y'all. Dear Lord and Father, thank you so much for watching over me, man. Thank you so much for giving me this wonderful testimony. I know some people get intimidated by it, but I tell them, man, anything that you can tell people what God's done for you, you know what I'm saying, it works. That's how we defeat the devil. And that's why, I did go long, but that's why I'm so passionate about it. Because over there it says we defeat the devil. And in your word it says we defeat the devil by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So that's why it's always a special time when I get to share my testimony with my people, Lord. And I pray that I didn't overdo it or overshare, but I did want to make sure they have enough to get a good picture of why I do what I do and what I had to go through to get here. You know, a lot of people want to be successful. They want to be on top, but they don't want to do what it takes to get to the top. And I just, you know what I'm saying, it took a lot for me to get here, but you brought me here, Lord, all because of your goodness and your grace. And I just thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. But more importantly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this testimony with my ministry tonight. So I thank you for all you've done. Thank you for letting your spirit. I felt your spirit's presence as I was talking. So I know somebody's being helped by this because I felt your spirit's presence, Lord. And I thank you for that. But more importantly, I thank you for bringing me back into the fold. I thank you for not only bringing me back into the fold, giving me this task to do. It's such an important task because there's so many out there that's hurting, and there's so many out there that need to hear your gospel that the regular preachers can't get to. But you put me in a perfect position and let everything happen to me that need to happen, so I will be able to go out there and talk to those lost sheep and hoping to bring them back into the fold. So thank you for watching over us. Thank you for letting me get to share my testimony. Thank you for these ones that bear with me. It's almost 3 hours, man. They bear with me. But if they really watch this video, I think it'll really be worth it. And I pray it touch their heart and give them the want to make the same decision like I did 19 years ago. Thank you for this wonderful week leading up to what I like to call my spiritual birthday. Thank you for letting everything be good so far. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to tell the world how good you've been to me. Now I pray that you let these words soak into their heart, bring them under conviction, Lord, and give them the want to see, give them the wisdom to see that you are real, and the best place to be is in your will, because that's the only way you can be successful. So I thank you so much for this night. Thank you for touching me and giving me the opportunity to tell this story. And I just thank you for being such a wonderful, awesome God and loving me the way you do and letting everything work out for good in the end, according to your will and your purposes. Watch over us tonight as we finish up. Keep us all safe and protected. Let us get into some good rest tonight so we can get up tomorrow with another day and another opportunity to serve your purpose and your will in our lives once again. Watch over all my people, Lord. Watch over the ministry. Continue to help it grow, prosper, reach out to the community, change the lives of others, and watch over this country and this world, Lord, and help us have a day where we all humble ourselves, pray, seek your face, and turn from our wicked ways so you may hear from heaven, forgive our sins, and heal our lands. Continue to use this ministry, your word, this ministry, my family, and my ministry members in a mighty way to do your work, to turn the hearts of this world back to you. We love you and thank you for all you've done and given. And we say this prayer in your wonderful Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Amen, man. Chris, thank you for hanging in there. And you others, I can't see you, but it don't necessarily mean you're gone. It's just your little bubble, little profile bubble is not there. But everybody that hung in here, man, thank y'all. I know it was a little long-winded. Like I said, it's just, and that's cutting out a whole lot of it. You know what I'm saying? There's editing, but I just pray that it helped you And I pray that then it helps you see that no matter what you're going through, God is always there in the midst. You know what I'm saying? God is always there in the midst. And if you just put your faith and trust in Him, He will get you through. I love you all. Thank you all for sharing my story with me. Thank you for being a part of my life. And thank you for making me tuning in week after week and making me your minister and giving me the opportunity and encouragement I need to do this work to hopefully help you have that close relationship with the Lord. I love you all. Thank you all. And until next time, remember, always watch your back and pray. Peace.